Good evening and welcome to a special meeting of the Olympia City Council. It's Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. And there's several reasons this meeting is special for us. It's our first one of the year. It's also has really one goal in mind, and that is to select an applicant to fill out this next year's seat number 2, which was vacated by Mayor Pro Tem Jessica Bateman at the end of the year as she is moving up to the legislature. Maybe not up, maybe over, right? Over to the legislature. And so we have decided after some debate this fall that, actually, you know what? I'll go back up. Sorry, we need to do a roll call. And this is a unique meeting, so my rhythm is a little off. So for the record, all the council members, all 6 of us are here. We have a quorum. We only have 2 items of business, and I don't have that we need to approve those business items. So I don't need an approval of the agenda, just for the record. The first item is item 2A, and that's to provide an overview and then potential approval of ranked choice voting process for the purpose of appointing a council member to fill the unexpired term of position 2. So in October, just for some context, in October of 2020, council members passed a resolution expressing in support for ranked choice voting. And when planning began to fill the vacancy of council position 2, several council members expressed interest in doing a trial run of ranked choice voting to assist with the process of appointing a new council member. So item 2A is to discuss that process and to help guide us through how ranked choice voting works. We have our very own Mary Hall, who is our Thurston County auditor, and she's graciously volunteered her time this evening to help us out. And she's going to introduce a couple other folks that are going to provide more, more assistance to Mary and can potentially answer more questions as necessary from Fair Vote, Washington. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Mary Hall, Thurston County Auditor, to go through a presentation on fair ranked choice voting. Mary?
It appears her laptop is muted.
Oh, Mary, we can't hear you. Oh, Susan's going to come back and probably have to unmute you. I should also, during this quiet time on the screen, explain the situation for council and staff this evening. We are actually all in City Hall in separate rooms so we can be safe and still be in the same building. And we felt that that was important for transparency, which we'll talk about in a minute when we get to the process of how we're actually going to vote and then collect our votes and count the votes. And so it's also logistically unique for us to all be in separate rooms. And so our fantastic executive assistant, Susan Grisham, is responsible for unmuting and muting speakers. So I think she's back in her command central, and maybe she can unmute Mary for us. Also want to just mention, I appreciate everyone's patience as we walk through this process together. After almost a year. There we are.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Selby. Instant runoff voting, also known as ranked choice voting, is gaining a lot of traction nationwide. So when Lisa reached out to me, letting me know that you were hoping to conduct a ranked choice voting election to appoint the next city council member to fill the vacancy, I was really happy to assist. But since my ranked choice voting experience was from my tenure in Pierce County, which was back in 2008 and 2009, I reached out to Fair Vote, Washington, to assist me in conducting this election. And they really are the ranked choice voting subject matter experts So I want to say a huge thank you to Executive Director Lisa Arrow of Fairvote, Washington, and also Chris Mason, who helped develop the process and procedures for today's vote. Chris is here today to help me conduct the election. He will actually be operating the Excel spreadsheet to tally the votes. We will be counting the ballots by hand. So Chris Mason is a volunteer technology lead for Fairvote, Washington. He was a developer for Microsoft and Expedia.com and now retired. So he's happy to be able to contribute to the movement for democracy reform and improving elections through ranked choice voting. So I'll give you a little overview of the rules for ranked choice voting. In RCV, you rank all 7 candidates in the order of your preference. So 1 for your first choice, 2 for your second choice, 3 for your third choice, and so on. And if a candidate receives the majority of the first choice votes, more than half, then that candidate is elected, and there's no further steps in ranked choice voting. But if no candidate receives a majority of votes, of first choice votes in the first round, then the candidate with the fewest first choice votes is eliminated. We then count the second vote on that ballot, and that gets transferred to another candidate. So we do this in rounds until a candidate receives the majority of the vote. Now, because of the small group in this election, small groups are prone to ties, so some additional rules will be used for that. We will use the average ranking to break ties. So this is typically used to exhaust a ballot. So the average ranking for each candidate is the sum of the rankings given to the candidate by each voter divided by the number of votes or ballots. So all voters must rank all 7 candidates in order to have the correct average ranking. So I believe you all received a packet that outlined ranked choice voting procedures, but for the audience, I also thought it would be useful to show a short video that shows how this works. We actually borrowed this from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who uses ranked choice voting for their municipal elections. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who is going to show that video.
In most elections, you only vote for one candidate for each office. But in some elections, voters can rank 3 or more candidates for each office. It's called ranked choice voting. Here's an example of how it works. All of the candidates will be listed on the ballot in 3 columns. Make your first choice vote in column 1 by filling in the oval of the candidate you'd most like to win. Vote for your second choice in column 2 and make your third choice in column 3. That's all there is to it. Now let's see how the votes are counted. Let's say there are 4 candidates running for mayor: Asha, Zach, Omar, and Lucy. Once the polls close, we count all the first choice votes first. To be elected mayor, a candidate needs more than half the votes. In this example, Asha has more than half of the votes, so she's declared the winner. However, if no candidate gets more than half the votes, we start eliminating candidates and counting the next choices of those who voted. In this example, Zach is the candidate with the smallest number of first choice votes, so he is cut. We use the second choice votes on Zach's ballots and count those voters' second choices instead. If one of the remaining candidates now has more than half of the total votes, that candidate is declared the winner. If not, the next lowest candidate, Lucy, is eliminated. Her votes are now counted for the next choice on the ballot. Some of Lucy's votes went to Zach, who was already eliminated, so those new votes for Zach instead count for those voters' third choice candidate. We are now down to 2 candidates, and Omar clearly has more than half of the votes. That makes him the winner. That's how ranked choice voting works. For more information.
Great. So our ballot looks a little different because you have 7 candidates and we need to rank all 7 candidates. So Chris is going to show us what your ballot will look like tonight. And this is more of the modern way to design ballots. So as you can see, all the candidates are listed in alphabetical order by last name. And then you'll actually, it's 1 through 7 across the top. So you can only vote for a candidate one time for first choice. And then you just go ahead and rank second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Mary, if I could get the screen back, or I can, okay, thank you. A little bit easier for me to manage questions and comments. So anybody want to lead off? I guess I could also add that Councilmember Madrone, Councilmember Parsley, and myself met with Mary and Lisa on December 23rd at the request of the council to have a meeting with them to decide whether this was a good process to try for this situation. And we all three came away saying, yes, we really want to try this. There was debate on my behalf on what if there's a tie after like the second run and there's two people that are super, super close. Do we have the option of at that point stopping using that process to get us to that point, and then have the option of calling those two people back forward for further questioning? And the feeling at the time from Lisa, because Chris wasn't part of that conversation, was that really undermines the process of what ranked choice voting is meant to do. So I acquiesced to that thinking that if we're going to do if we're really going to show the community how this works, that it needs to be a purer process where we just go through to the end like the first YouTube video showed. But I'm open to other people's input because that was just 3 of us talking. Councilmember Parsley.
I'm going to restrain from asking. I will make comments, and I would like to hear what the other 3 council mates might have to say that were not at that subcommittee meeting.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. So I guess when I think about it, I really appreciate the video because that was a very simplistic way to see it. I'm challenged in the similar place as the mayor around going beyond the second vote count purely because there's not very many voters. And so I'd be inclined to narrow it to the second vote count and then look at it. And my gut says if it's not more than a 2-vote majority, not more than a 2-vote lead above the second place person, then I would want to have more conversation, because because there's not very many of us. Though I will say that I think I'm excited about this. And I think given the conversation where we are in our country around voting, it's a really great opportunity for us to show this process and show it with as much fidelity as we can. But I worry about going further beyond the second vote, the second kind of place votes to make a decision without narrowing it, and either maybe doing a second interview or maybe just casting a vote again with a narrower ballot, knowing that it would help us see more clearly. So that's the 2 things I'm thinking of. And then I do want to ask that we would allow at any point in this process any one person to request an executive session to talk about qualifications. And I know that we talked about that coming after the interview process. And I don't know if I would want to do that after I see the votes before we make a motion and make a final appointment. But I also get that starts to test the process that we're talking about. So, I'm excited about this, but nervous because it's not normal. And I know that we want to reform how we do this kind of thing in our world and make it better. So that's just kind of where I'm sitting, especially with how qualified all of these candidates are and having trouble before the interviews imagining someone showing up with more than a 1 or 2 vote lead. So thank you.
Yeah, well stated. Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you, Mayor Sylvie. I'm inclined to trust this process. I followed closely Maine statewide elections that used this process and created an opportunity for some sort of underdog folks to come in to their state house that wouldn't have otherwise happened. I think it's a strong system, and I'm willing to trust it through this. And I think it's sort of true that we won't have that it's not likely that we'll have one person who will get all of the votes, because we have a whole pool of people I'd be proud to serve alongside. And so I feel like this is a good way to get to the decision. And I don't know that spending another hour of either interviewing the top two at that third round or of our debating amongst ourselves is going to really change the fact that we're choosing between many very strong and capable candidates. So anyhow, I'm inclined to let the ranked choice voting run its course and accept that result.
All right. Before I go back to you, Councilmember Cooper, Councilmember Rollins, did you have anything to add?
Just briefly, I was definitely nodding along with Jim, like everything. I share the concern about the small number of people that are voting. And that was where I expected to land on it. But hearing just Clark talking about sticking with the process and trusting it and just knowing that we're going to have someone great, no matter what. But I would land more on balance with what Clark was articulating. I did have one question, and that is just process. And I'm sorry if I missed this, but once we have a winner in this process, do we then take a motion to accept, to like someone nominates in? Okay, so.
Absolutely. And I apologize. I wanted to get to this part of it because I knew it was going to be the meatiest part of the conversation. But then I will explain, yes, what we do.
I just felt like in theory, if, we'll know who wins the runoff, if we take it down to the top person. And then if someone really wants to if one of us wants to make a motion about, actually, I think we should consider the top two. I mean, we could essentially take up conversation then. I wouldn't anticipate it, but it seems like going by the books, there is space for that. And it would only come up if someone really felt like it was worth like an hour of conversation and more questions to the candidates. So that was all.
Okay, no, that was well stated. And I think, as far as parliamentary procedures, and then I'm welcoming anybody to chime in from Fair Vote, that we still have to take a motion. And that would be the opportunity for people to say, let's pump the brakes a little bit on this and have more discussion, and then that might be the time to request an executive session to discuss qualifications off camera. Is that all right? Thanks, Lisa, for the thumbs up. Does that sound okay with you, Councilmember Cooper?
Yeah, Mayor Selby. So I think I'm there. So the only thing that I would, and the only other concern I have that was sort of built into my conversation is 16 minutes of interview when you would normally have, 6 interviews for a CEO, and this is a bigger job. And
it's more than 16 minutes.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm just making up a number, but a short interview for a big job. And so I guess maybe there's flexibility in the panels to allow us to ask follow-up questions, even if it throws the time schedule off, so that we feel really good before we take the vote. Because I think that's my nervousness, is not knowing what my hindsight is going to be or what question I wish I would have asked. But I also know that the voters get to fix this. We're not going to make a bad decision that I can see, but the voters will do whatever they need to do in November as well. But that's just what I'm thinking. But I can totally be in Clark's spot, and I really appreciate the way he phrased it. So.
Okay, so we haven't gotten actually to the point of discussing the format for questions, so hold that thought.
Well, for me, that's about accepting the process. To know that if I have a follow-up question, I'm going to get to ask it.
Okay, so this is where this is not a traditional process, I get that, but I think for fairness that we have to give every candidate the same opportunity to ask the same questions in the same order, because that's apples to apples. If we start going down the road where it's like, well, I want to follow up with that person, it's not fair to the people that either come after or before. And so I really feel strongly about sticking to the same order of questions from this, for each candidate, and sticking to the same time limit. Maybe that flexibility, if we get to the very end and we've got two people that we want to hear more from, and there's a motion to bring them back, then you can maybe ask those more, in the weeds questions. I'm just trusting that everybody has read. I mean, these applications are incredible and incredibly thorough. And that's part of why these 7 people rose to where they are now. And so based on their applications and this gut check that, that's what we're paid to do, that we can come to a decision without disrupting the process with a bunch of random questions. That's my feeling. Councilmember Parsley.
I tend to agree with you, Mayor, on doing the same questions because it's about fairness. But I know you guys know that what I'm going to say, which is I think we got to trust the process and see what it comes up with. And I think Renata brought up, Councilmember Rollins, brought up an excellent point that it's going to come down to a motion to accept the results of the ranked choice. And if there is a problem at that point, we can either call for an executive session or potentially make a decision to bring 2 people back at that point. But I think if we're going to do this, we should do it all the way, as we heard in the subcommittee, that a hybrid system isn't necessarily the way we want to go. If we're going to do this, we need to do it fully. And that's my point. And I'm also going to say that we should probably do a motion on the voting before we move on to the questions, so we can clarify as we go. That's done, check. Let's go to the questions, check. So if everybody's ready, I would like to make a motion that we
let Councilmember Parsley make her motion.
That we accept the process as outlined in our packet for ranked choice, including the ballots that we have received and the process of submitting the ballots and counting.
Second.
Okay, question, additional comment? Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. So I just want to clarify that the words you said before the motion are part of your motion. So if we have that flexibility like we've talked about, which is not written in this process, then I'm 100% on board. So can you clarify that for me, either parliamentarily or as the maker of the motion?
Before I clarify, can I ask Mark or Jay or the mayor, is that an automatic assumption that once the ranked choice, if we did a plural vote, would we still have to come to the virtual dais and make a motion and accept the vote?
Our city attorney, Mark Barber, just unmuted.
You would have to come back, as you indicate, and make a motion, the dais.
So regardless whether it's a plural or a ranked vote, we would still have to come back to the dais to make that. So does it need to be part of my motion? Jim, how are you feeling?
I feel fine if everybody's just willing to kind of be a little bit flexible. If any one of us are sort of worried in those last minutes after we see, because all of this is me trying to like think ahead, and it's clearly not working. So
I think that just speaks to the anxiety all of us are feeling because there's so many good candidates, and so it's like fear of missing out.
And there are amazing candidates.
I'm fine with that integrity based on this conversation. I just wanted to make sure that that's what we all intended, and those head nods are good for me.
Okay, so head nods, consensus on. So that is a motion though, and it was seconded. So we do need to take a vote.
Renata was kicked out of the. Are you clear of what happened, Renata? Should we recap?
Could someone please? Yeah, I just.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Mayor, do you want to do that?
No, I think since you made the motion, I'll let you.
So I made a motion, which was seconded, to accept the ranked choice as outlined in our packet and as written on our ballot, and the procedures around the voting process as well as calculation. while it was seconded, and then it was brought up, is it part of the motion for us to do the action at the dais after the results are tabulated? And at that point, can we have what you suggested, a conversation if there's a discomfort? And it's separate because we would have to do that whether it was a plural vote or a ranked choice vote.
So parliamentary, there will have to be a vote, and that could be when the discussion could happen if people are second guessing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that part of the process is approved. And I heard that we are going to be taking another motion. I think that's okay with our city attorney to approve the question process and who's going to say or ask what questions. And so are we ready to move on to that? Okay. So, and at the very end of this, I'll explain it to the candidates when they come in on the panels to what the process is that we just approved. And you guys can chime in if I didn't get it right, because it's a little confusing. All right. So council members were asked to submit questions to Kelly Persbroseth, our strategic communications director, before the holidays for her to compile a list of potential questions to ask our applicants. And so she put them in different theme buckets and took a run because we had asked her to say, okay, just kind of give us who could ask those questions based on her gut and then maybe who actually submitted those questions or such. So she sent out that before New Year's and then did another run at it, I think that we got yesterday. And so what I want to know from, well, I will propose what I'm thinking and then you guys can give me your thoughts. So what I was proposing based on previous application interviews in the past for council vacancies is one question per person, 2 minutes per person to answer those questions. And in this case, the mayor and myself would give an opening and ask them to introduce themselves. They'd have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And then at the very end, I would have my question and I can, speak to that in a moment, but there'd be basically their introduction and 6 questions. And then each time I come to you to ask your questions, I will have rotated down the panel so the same person isn't always starting. Okay, so that process sounds okay. And I'll run the timer. Oh, I forgot my 30-second crud. I left my 30 seconds at home. I'll have to come up with something. And so that's the easy part. Yay, thank you. And so the second part would be, what questions do you want to ask? And I can just round robin this on the screen. Do you want to start? We'll just do, we'll start with Jim.
Okay, well, I would like to ask the question that's under section 4 around the city manager and the relationship with the council. But I also have a high priority of hearing about where people are on implementing a climate plan and where and how they think about housing as it relates to supply and demand. So I just want to say those things. Those are my 3 priorities. But my first priority is to ask that one question. So
okay, well, maybe you can ask those 3 questions and then just not ask them, but just put that into your priorities and then ask the one question, which would be the city man. No, that doesn't work. They don't fit together.
I'm just saying that because I think that generally a lot of us want to hear about those topics. That's why I'm throwing it on the table.
Okay. Good point. And so when we circle the table and those 2 choices are not also included, then maybe you can switch your choice. Okay, so let's go. I got Danny. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Madrone.
I'm interested in asking a question about the comprehensive plan update and important areas of focus and goals.
Okay, so was that under section?
Oh, sorry. Section 5.
Yeah, for the sake of council members that have that printout. So it was under section 5. Okay. So I'm just going to put next to comp plan, and you can just phrase it however you feel is best.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that because there's 2 questions there that I kind of want to.
Okay. So I'm going to put Danny down for comp plan. And I know you're really good at asking questions, so I have faith that you'll be able to put those, smush those together. All right, Councilmember Parsley.
Muted.
Thank you, Dan. Councilmember Madron. Keep saying the wrong thing. So now I'm looking at my section, which is also shared with Councilmember Rollins on specific issues. And I have 2 questions that I'm interested in. And one is, how would you provide the soon-to-be formed Human Rights, Social and Justice and Equity Commission adequate influence on legislation, policy, and procedures is one of my interests. And then my second one would be, I actually don't see it right in here quickly, but it would be, how would you define and help our climate mitigation plan address climate equity and climate justice?
So wait, that's 2 questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one, and I'm looking for the council to help me somewhat on their priorities because they're radically different, and I've had a hard time choosing. So maybe if we go around, I'll have a decision at the end. But those are my 2 right now that I've narrowed it down to.
Were those under what section? 5 as well?
5, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cooper.
So I just say, Councilmember Parsley, the second one is less wonky, and it gets at some of the bigger issues we're dealing with. So that's what I would say.
Okay. All right, I'm good with that.
And you add equity, so to me that feels really good.
Okay.
Thanks for that feedback.
Thank you. I was looking for that guidance. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. I'd like to ask a question from section 2, and I made an attempt to merge together. Lisa and Danny had both asked about ways people might collaborate, and I had proposed a question about how you represent the communities that you come from. So I would like to say that each council member comes from constituencies and interest groups, and we each have political views as well. How will you reconcile that constituency's desires and your personal politics with the broader needs and goals of the city and community? If that sounds okay to folks, that's.
Okay. That sound okay? All right, Councilmember Rollins.
Hey there. I was hoping to ask from section 5, the one right at the top. What are your priorities concerning the delivery of public safety and police services in the community, which came from Clark? Councilmember Gilman.
Okay. All right. Did I make it all around the table? I think it did. So then the question that I was going to use would be, I think that it was somewhat on the application, but I think it would be really good for the audience to hear it again. And that is, what do you think are the top 3 issues currently needing to be addressed? The type of issues that you would hear from our community if you were doorbelling. Is that all right? Okay. All right, and then I was going to give them a minute for a closing comment. So 2 minutes for an introduction, 1 minute for closing. Okay.
And are we going to do them in order by how they fall on the sheet?
Yeah, I was just going to, for the simplicity, I was just going to go, which is what I'm going to madly scribble on my notes to make sure I got the order. You guys are responsible for your own questions, but I'm going to put the order. So what I'll do is, let me grab my notepad. So, like I said, I'll do the opening. Ask them to introduce themselves. They have 2 minutes. And then I will go to section 2 for Clark. So Clark, you'll follow me. And then I'm going to skip 3 because no one picked that. We're going to go to section 4. Is that Jim, or are you still settled on that question? Because you got the other ones covered. Okay. So Jim, sorry, I'm using Councilmember Cooper, Councilmember Gilman. And then I've got the next section is 5. And so I've got Councilmember Rollins. And then after that, I've got Councilmember Madrone. And then myself. And then their closing 1-minute comment.
And Councilmember Parsley.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking. I'm sorry.
After Rollins, right?
So after, oh yeah, I'm sorry. My page just got out of order. Why did I not? Okay. Yep, got it. Okay, so after Councilmember Rollins, I've got Councilmember Parsley, followed by Councilmember Madrone, then me. We all good? Oh, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Thank you. So, all right. So do I need a motion to, okay, Councilmember Parsley?
Did I may have not been listening as closely as I should have. Did you say I'm after Councilmember Madrone or after Rollins? Okay,
So
I just want to make sure.
So me with introductions, then it's Councilmember Gilman, Councilmember Cooper, Councilmember Rollins, Councilmember Parsley, Councilmember Madrone, and then myself again. And, you know, of course, I'll tee you up each time. So I'm going to ask City Attorney Mark Barber, do we need a motion to approve the questions? Since we've already approved the actual process, which is the voting.
It would be best to have a motion to approve the questions.
Okay,
So moved.
thank you. Need a second?
Okay. Second.
Right. I'll approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Oh, sorry, opposed? All right, motion passes. Excellent. Okay. You know, and if at any point, because this is in real time while we're doing all this, that you need a little bit more time to make some notes or something, just flag me and I'll get my hand up there, flag me and I'll, you know, say, well, we just need to take, you know, a few minutes for people to catch up on their notes. Because I know we're all going to be scribbling madly. And sometimes you miss things when you're also taking notes. Okay.
We have instant replay, right?
Sorry. right. Okie doke. So I think at this point, we are ready to start the process. I need to, Councilmember Cooper.
I just wanted to make sure you were going to draw the names before you went ahead.
Yes, that was what, let me go find my magic bowl, twisting them around. So I will be picking 4 people for the first panel and 3 for the second. Is that okay? Or we could do 3 and 4. Doesn't matter to me. 4 and 3. Okay. So the first person in the first group is, these are Post-it notes. Dante Payne. Followed by, oopsie. They're sticking to each other. Okay. Tracy Carlo. Followed by Maria Seguenza. And the last person in the first panel is Yen Hyun. So that leaves for the second panel, just for the record, we've got Robbie Kessler. And come on, Kento Azagami. And Holly Davies. All right. So, have I missed anything? Are we good? We're good to start this? All right. So,
Shelby, have we talked about cameras? And are we going to have the 6 of us plus 4 of them on, or how are we going to?
yes, thank you for logistics like that. We discussed that at agenda setting, and Jay Burney came up with a great idea that once we start the interviews, just the 6 screens of the council members will be shown, and everyone else will turn their video off so that the panelists are only seeing our faces and their faces. Does that make sense? Nope.
So will there be 10 people on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth going in and out on the video for the panelists because it just takes more time to turn it on and off, and then there's muting on top of that. So if that's okay, there would just be 10 faces. Okay, excellent. Great question, thank you. This is the kind of stuff that we, because we've never done this on Zoom, that we just had to figure out on the fly. So when I have Susan bring the candidates in, she's going to talk briefly about that process of where the candidates are in the ether, the ones that aren't being pulled forward. And then how they're going to be moved back out when the other panel comes in. So she's going to talk about the logistics of Zoom for this process. And then I will explain to the panelists that, or do you want to call them panelists, applicants, candidates? Do you guys have a preference? Anybody?
Call them candidates
Call them finalists or
or
candidates.
finalists. Yeah,
Finalists, okay.
that's good.
Yep, okay. Thank you for that. That's another one of those things I've been messing around with in my head. So then I will tell the finalists what we agreed to as far as the fair or the ranked choice voting, and then how the ballots are counted, and the whole process that where we are going to turn our ballots in individually. That'll be on camera. Mary Hall will collect them or we'll put them in the ballot box. She'll pull them out and tabulate everything on the screen online so everybody can see how transparent this process is. Sound good? All right. And like I said, at any point, if something's not clear, if it's not clear to you, it's probably not clear to the finalists. So please ask. No problem with stopping and asking for clarification, because I'm bound to miss something. There's a lot of balls in the air right now. Okay, so Susan, are you clear on the panelists that are to be brought in?
Yes, I am. So right now they're sitting in a separate Zoom meeting.
It's hard to hear, right? Is that what you're head about, Jim or Councilmember Cooper?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. My computer is not acting great. My apologies. So right now the finalists are sitting in another Zoom meeting. Once I get finished talking to you guys, I'm going to send the first panel their Zoom links and let them know it's time to join the meeting. So if you give me about 5 minutes there to give them time to log in and everything. And then once they're done being interviewed, they will be made attendees. So they'll be viewers on the meeting. And then wait 5 minutes so I could get links to the next panel. And then they'll be interviewed. And then when they're done, they'll be made attendees as well.
Okay, so those
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's Zoom land. So if those 5 minutes might be an opportunity for council to run to a comfort break or something like that.
Yes.
Okay. So you can take yourself off video for those 5 minutes and then come back on. And then also at that time is when it looks like everybody else has already taken their video off. And so there's a way, and Jim always coaches me on how to do this, but there's a way just to show video only, right? Faces, people that are on video only, right? You right click on somebody that's not, or you click on the 3 buttons on somebody that's not having their video. You say hide non-video participants, if that might help, because it's going to be a busy screen for sure. Okay, with that, we have 5 minutes now. Susan?
Yes.
Okay, so it is, for the record, 6:20, so 6:25, everybody back in and we'll start the process. Thank you. Okay, it's now 6:25. Can you hear me? Okay. Do we have everybody up? There's Councilmember Gilman, we've got Councilmember Rollins, we've got Councilmember Drone, Cooper.
We're still waiting on Dante. Oh, no, we're not waiting on Dante. Here he is.
Dante Payne and Councilmember Parsley. All right, it worked. So far. You guys, I'm sure will spend some time going over what we just did for the previous 45 minutes. And it's a testament to the quality of candidates that we have in this final group of 7, that it took us this long to not just select a very special process for you tonight, but also the questions. And it's just a big task for us. It's one of those really, really important things that we have as council members, as legislators, to, pick and appoint somebody to replace an outgoing member. And it happens rarely. So it's also a process that we're not that familiar with. So it took a lot of working out some kinks. And as I believe Susan Grisham has been in contact with all you and has briefed you on this new process of ranked choice voting that we have chosen to implement tonight. And as well, I want to have Susan come forward and explain how the Zoom part of this whole magic is going to happen tonight.
So I know there's sound issues with my computer, so I'm going to speak up. So excuse me for yelling. So after you guys are interviewed, I'm going to make you attendees in this meeting. So basically, you'll become part of the audience. So once you're done, we'll do that, and then whoever is the candidate who gets chosen at the end, I will make them a panelist again, so they can participate in the meeting again. So that's kind of how it's going to work.
Thank you for that, and thank you for setting up a very complicated logistical evening. That's the other problem. Yeah, right. That's the other thing that we're all now at this point well versed in is that if some things can go wrong on a Zoom meeting, they can. So I'm appreciative of everyone's patience and grace as we get through this evening. So just to go over a little bit of what we approved while you were in the waiting room was, again, the process of ranked choice voting. And some of you are aware that in October of this year, we passed a resolution expressing support for ranked choice voting. And so when this opportunity came up to fulfill a vacancy or fill a vacancy, we thought, what a perfect opportunity. So what is ranked choice voting? It's a different way of counting ballots so the voter ranks the candidates in the order preferred to them, first choice, second choice, up. In this case, it's going to be 1 through 7. and so on. If the voters' top pick cannot win, their vote counts for their next choice. And so for this evening, we were very, very fortunate to have Mary Hall, our Thurston County Auditor, who's going to oversee the whole process for us. It's all going to be on camera and video or taped. So for future people, for other, cities that want to try this, they can look at it as well. So it's a learning opportunity for all of us, but hopefully for other communities. So the way the ballots are counted, if a candidate receives a majority or more than half in the first choice votes, that candidate wins, just like in any other election. If there is no majority winner after counting first choices, then the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. And then any voter who picked the eliminated candidate as their number one will have their vote count for their next choice. And then the process continues until one candidate receives a majority of votes in the final round. At that point, council has the prerogative, because we still need to make a motion to approve that person, that we have the prerogative at that point, if it's so close still after all of those rounds, that we can ask to bring two. Maybe not three, I don't know. It just really depends on how it all plays out. Unlikely three, but potentially two people to come back for additional questioning. And I don't want to create more anxiety for you, but this is such an important decision. And so if it's that close, because in previous processes, that's what we've done. We've brought back two or three to ask some more questions. But so I just wanted you to be aware of, there's a small chance that you might have to get called back. Okay. So, and the way the voting, the ballot's been designed by, you know what, I'm going to wait till the actual ballot description until we're all done with the questions, because you'll probably forget it anyways. So I'll bring that back when we're closer to the voting. So with that, we have chosen to do a process where each one of us gets to ask a question. They'll go in rotating order. So that way the person that starts doesn't always start with a question, and we all go down the line. And in this case, my screen shows Tracy Carlos next to Dante Payne, next to Maria Seguenza, next to Yan Hyun. So that's the order I'll start with for the questions. And the first will not be so much a question, it'll just be welcoming you and then asking you, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself to us. And then we'll start the formal questions, and they will go in order with Councilmember Gilman, followed by Councilmember Cooper, followed by Councilmember Rollins, followed by Councilmember Parsley, followed by Councilmember Madrone, and then I have one final question, and then you'll have 1 minute for closing remarks. So that's a lot of information. So I'll just keep, if you guys have any questions, and that's what I've told the council as well. This is all new. So please don't be afraid to raise your hand and go, I'm still not clear. And please feel free to do that, because I might not be clear. So with that, welcome. Enough of me talking. What I'd like to do is open up this panel session and ask you to introduce yourself and share with us what you want to serve, why you want to serve on the city council, and what skills and knowledge you bring. And I'll have a timer, and somebody brought me does that work? Does this work with me in a virtual?
It's getting hidden by your
The
your
green
background.
screen's making you disappear.
What do I do?
Turn off your background.
Oh, but it's so cool. I spent a lot of time making it. I wanted to make it look like I was just outside council chambers when I'm really in a room somewhere. Oh yeah, for the record too, we're all in separate rooms all over City Hall. So
Mayor Selby, if you bring it up slowly towards your chest, it seems to still be there. But if you bring it off to the side, it gets taken away by the council chamber background.
thank you. All right, thanks for that pro tip. All right, so if you guys can see that, that's gonna be your 30 seconds.
And maybe fold down some of the extra white space at the top.
Oh.
Yeah, she's right.
Ah, good. It takes a village, doesn't it? Awesome. Okay, so back to the 2 minutes, and I'm going to start with, is it okay if I use your first names? Okay. Okay, so I'll start with Tracy.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name's Tracy Carlos. I use she, her pronouns. And I moved to Olympia in 2010 during the recession. I got laid off, just like many others did, cashed in my 401k and went, where is a good place for me and my now ex-wife, who's transgender, to live where she and I could be safe? Where we were living, she could not transition to be her authentic self because it wasn't safe. One of us would have gotten shot. So we moved here after some research, and I fell in love with the place. I can't imagine ever moving away. And I want to serve on council because I want everyone living in Olympia to feel like I did when I first arrived here, feel accepted by the community, no need to hide who you are or feel like you're an outsider. And I have a lot of experience with talking to people and explaining things, complicated concepts, and bringing them and explaining them so that people can understand. I work for the state. I have for the last 10 years, so I'm very familiar with understanding laws, and I want to bring that forward. I want to spend the next few years looking at working towards not just improving our justice system, but also looking at parks and transportation and everything through an equity lens. I think that looking through the equity lens will improve it for everyone, not just the marginalized communities. I want to tackle division in the community. There's been a lot of violence, and I want to look at ways of trying to bring the community back together.
Thank you. All right. We're back to top of the order. So I've got Dante Payne.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Selby and members of the Olympia City Council and residents of the city of Olympia. I'm Dante Payne, he, him, and I currently work as the South Puget Sound and Olympic Peninsula Regional Representative to Governor Inslee. Just today, I accepted a position to move to as Deputy District Director for Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland. So I will be accepting that position in the coming weeks and transitioning to the office there. I moved to the Olympia area in 2014 after serving at Joint Base Lewis McChord for 2 years. As Tracy pointed out, I moved to this area and fell in love with the community. It is absolutely a welcoming place for various demographics of people. And my personal experiences here have evolved over time, and I've been able to grow as a person and professionally in this community. And I feel that that is a story that should be the story of so many others in this community. And it is one that we don't hear enough of in our community. And I want to serve the citizens here because we have much work to do in regards to housing and homelessness, as well as issues with our public safety currently. And I bring to the experience, experience of building coalitions, and forming stakeholder relationships and understanding governance. And that is what I would bring to the position of a council member.
Thank you. Maria.
Mayor Selby, council members, and our residents. Hello, Maria Sigüenza. I am an 8.5-ish year resident here in Olympia. I moved here to actually find opportunity at state government. Actually not myself, but I followed my other half
I fell in love with Olympia. Really, truly has been the place that I have felt the most at home. And I've had really the opportunity to grow in my career here. I've had the opportunity to learn how the systems work at a state, county, city level, and I bring that perspective to help close the gap between these systems, right? They're separate, but they're together, and there's a lot of different gaps. Personally, I emigrated from Veracruz in Mexico. I was a baby when I emigrated with my mother. I was undocumented for the majority of my childhood. And so I bring that intimate familiarity with that comes with understanding the obstacles that the immigrant population here in Olympia and across the state confront. I was a Spanish medical interpreter. Actually, right when the recession hit, my mother drilled into me the fact that I had to learn Spanish. I was very obstinate as a teenager, but really it actually was a tool that I was able to use and create a livelihood right after I graduated from college. Through that experience, through both of those experiences, I've become a bridge, and I've been a conduit really my whole life. You know, I have my feet firmly planted in the immigrant community and in our mainstream community. I understand systems and how to navigate them, and I understand how to build community as well. And so I come to you very humbly with those skill sets.
Thank you. And now I've got Yen Hyun.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Quinn. I am a proud daughter of Vietnamese refugees. I was born and raised in Thurston County. I have the privilege of being the first generation in my family to graduate from college. I attended South Puget Sound Community College, where I earned my associates in business. I then transferred to the Evergreen State College and earned my bachelor's in entrepreneurship and business management, and then returned for my master's in public administration with an emphasis in public policy. I currently work as the Supplier Diversity Program Specialist for the Office of Minority and Women's Business Enterprises. And in that role, I meet with 63 state agencies, 3 public higher ed institutions, and a number of political subdivisions. I consult with them about their challenges and barriers to increasing their business diversity, and I offer tools and resources to assist them in doing so. I also facilitate action teams for the Governor's Subcabinet on Business Diversity, wherein I write model policies that influence equity in public spending statewide. Currently, I am a candidate for a certified diversity executive certificate. I want to be a part of this city council because I love Olympia, truly. And when I say I love Olympia, I mean that I'm able to walk downtown and wave at shop owners in the window, including my father. And that's something I can't get anywhere else, you know, and I'm invested in their success. I sit with my peers of different ages and backgrounds, and we talk about our plans and how we could only hope to obtain home ownership one day in this city. I pass by our houseless community members downtown and throughout our city, and I'm not content. I don't feel okay walking past and thinking that there isn't anything that I can do. So with me, I bring a diverse perspective, an equity and a business lens with experience. And I really, truly would be, I think, a good partner to council members and to the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first round. Take a deep breath. You made it through. Now we're going to start the questions. And so our first question is going to be coming from Councilmember Gilman, and I'm going to start with Dante.
All right, here we go, Dante. Question 1. Each council person comes from constituencies or interest groups, and we each have political views as well. How will you reconcile your constituency's desires and your personal politics with the broader goals and needs of the city of Olympia and our community?
You have 2 minutes.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Gilman. I think that the most important thing in this regard is to remember the goal and what it is that various constituencies and coalitions with different opinions, what it is that we would like to see. We may have different ways of how to approach getting to the end goal, but I think you start with reminding various coalitions and people who are part of those coalitions, you remind them of the purpose and the goal. I find that that is what works to stay focused and on track. I also think it's important to admit your political leanings or bias, if you will, up front, and that is acknowledged and you move on. And it's important for everyone who's a part of that coalition to do the same in order to stay on track and get to the end goal. And that's how I would go about that.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria Seguenza. Maria?
Yes. I forgot to mention earlier that I will have my eyes darting from, place to place. And that's because I have a ridiculous amount of notes that I might not use actually, but just so that you know if I'm not looking at the camera. I think this is a really important question, and I see ultimately the council being responsible for making decisions on behalf of our neighbors and on behalf of our community. I also believe that it is a responsibility of the council, and I would take this responsibility very seriously to make informed decisions. And this requires us to have an open door to all of our community and neighbors. This requires us to be actively seeking perspectives differing from ours so that we can make the best decision possible. I might identify one way, and I think to Dante's point, it is really important to identify what those biases are and then move past them. But my goal as a council member would be to make sure that, yes, while I have a perspective, I am engaging with our neighbors and our community members, and I am listening intently, and I am actually acting upon the wisdom that they help us mine, right? The wisdom lies in our community, and I practice this on a day-to-day basis in my regular job as an executive director for a commission at the state, the Hispanic Commission Affairs. And so, our group is not a monolith. We represent the perspectives of a million different people in our state, and it's a day-to-day practice that I'm fairly seasoned in.
Thank you. Next, I have Yen.
Yeah, I completely echo the sentiments of the two candidates before me in identifying biases and then also appreciating differences. Absolutely, I come from a constituency, right? Everyone does. I feel connected to young people in our community. I feel connected to people of color. I feel, at home with renters that would like to keep their rent affordable and hopefully obtain home ownership. I'm a state employee, and I also feel sensitive to the impacts on our small businesses. So yes, I bring with me a lot of different perspectives, I think. And I think that is the part of this process, right? And having so many council members working together to inform policies and not having anyone, dictate what that should be. So I bring not only perspective from different represented groups in the community, but a representation that I think in some parts we're lacking on the council. And I have a holistic view, and I know that through working together and discussing these differences and finding middle ground for ways that, we can bring forth policies that hopefully serve a wide variety of interests. So I think that it'll happen organically in this process. And I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that with you all and advocating for the folks that we feel connected to in the community.
Thank you. So I think we got through everybody. I'm making like, nope. Oh, I see. Okay. So my little check marks are not working. I'm so sorry. So we'll close with Tracy on this question.
No problem. Thank you very much for the question. One thing, as editor of the newsletter for the state resource group, the Rainbow Alliance and Inclusion Network, I learned is how to deal with intersectionality. And listening to different groups and learning who my audience is when I'm writing for the newsletter or I'm editing for it. And that's kind of the same way you look at things when you're looking at policies with the city council is you have to get to know who your audience is, who the people that live in the community is, listen to them. I'm not going to put together a newsletter with only what I want to hear, because then nobody's going to read it but me. You have to learn to adjust and find things that are going to work for everybody or for a broader number of people, because you can't please everyone. And then when I'm working with Partners in Prevention Education, I've been on the board there for a few years. It's the same kind of thing. You have to get to know the community that, in this case, it's the houseless community here in Olympia, and what their needs are, and not assume because their needs are not necessarily what I thought they were going to be when I started working with them. And I've learned a lot about what they need through my work with them. And again, it's listening to what the people that are working with them the most, listening to them, and learning from it. So that's the gist of what I see for city councils. You just got to listen to everybody before you make your decisions. And yes, I'm going to have my perspective, but I also am aware that I'm one person and I don't have all the perspectives that need to be heard. I think that's everything on that, though.
I always feel bad when I put 30 seconds up. People like, I'm done. So you still have time.
Yeah, no, I tend to end right around earlier, unless I have like something written, and then it'll take forever.
So now I think we completed our first round. No questions. Excellent. So the next person I have with a question is Councilmember Cooper, and we're going to start with Maria.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to hear from you. It's impressive. So Olympia has a council manager form of government, or as our previous city manager called it, a strong council form of government. And a strong relationship between the council as a body and the city manager is imperative to the success of the city. What is your understanding of the checks and balances of separation of legislative and executive powers in this form of government, and how will you adapt to it?
I think this is a phenomenal question, and I have, in doing my research, in previous years of the council, I have noted that it's something that has been grappled with, right? As I like to joke and say it's the separation of church and state. It's the legislative body, it's the administrative body, and it is so hard to separate that sometimes, right? Because we get so invested and we get so passionate about the work, and we really want to make sure that we're all successful. And while sometimes we might have really good intentions and what's perceived as overreaching, we have to step back and realize that, this is a legislative arm. I speak from a place of experience in this area. As I had mentioned earlier with the commission, we have a similar dynamic. We've got 11 governor appointed commissioners. They're the eyes and ears of the governor. They're the ones that really are cultivating relationships with their local communities, with their local leaders, with with their elected leadership, etc. And the staff, there's 3 of us, right? There's 3 of us, and we are really, it's a little bit different. We provide support and make sure that they have all of the tools that they need. But it does become very important that the chair and the executive leadership, along with my relationship, is very, very strong, and we're always working in unison. I can also draw an example from the board that I currently sit on, CLO, and it's an organization that has the same kind of experiences. So really, as a council member, I will take these experiences at the forefront of my mind and remember that we're here to serve a purpose. We have a role. While we might have the best intentions, sometimes we have to pump the brakes and just let people do their jobs, because sometimes we do get in the way accidentally. Not bad intentions, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next I have Yen.
I have to say, I would also, lean towards trust, I think, is what it's really about. And this is a process that we have, learning that this is, council members are part-time. They are essentially hire and fire, or I should say bring on, and then if need be, let go, the city manager, and then also the hearings examiner, and understanding what their roles are has been really interesting for me. And I think it just comes with trust and relationship building. So I would want to have a strong relationship with not only council members, but also the city manager and the hearings examiner as well, when there's opportunity to do so. If there's something that maybe doesn't quite resonate with me, I would pick up the phone and ask them about it. I would talk to my council members about it. I understand that it's it's a two-way relationship, and they inform me as much as, should I become a council member, as much as council informs their decisions, and really trusting people to do the job that you hired them for, right? And then being able to have a conversation if you feel like those things aren't happening.
Thank you. Next I have Tracy.
Thank you. One of the things I've experienced is I've had a job where I had 6 bosses. It doesn't work. One of the things I like about this is the staff knows who their boss is. Their boss is the city manager, and he goes and he talks to the council about the different things that need to get done. So that we're not micromanaging. I think that's where the check and balance is to me. If 4 of us go to poor Susan and say, I need this right now, well, none of it's going to happen right now because she has to have time to get all 4 things done. So I appreciate the fact that we respect that boundary and work mostly with the city manager and getting things done. And I like the fact that the council themselves, every voice is equal. And so that's what I see when I'm looking at the checks and balances is the fact that it keeps it so that the staff knows consistency and that they know that what their priorities are and don't feel pressured to take on priorities that unintentionally we might have caused a problem by bringing them forward to people. And I really, looking over the city council guide, I learned a lot about how all the separations work and think that it's a good system that we have.
Thank you. And last for this question, I have Dante.
Yes, so quite simply, I think that The way to ensure the checks and balances is simply to refer to the scope of the executive and the legislative branches, and having an understanding of that, a thorough understanding of that scope. And respecting one another's expertise, I think, is going to be critical in building those professional relationships between the council members and the city staff. I think that it's important as a new member, especially, to be advised by professionals who have been working for the city of Olympia for several years, and having an understanding of when it is, when you are asked to act within your scope versus when they are, I think is pivotal and extremely important for the continuity of governance in a way that it is conductive.
Thank you. All right, we're going on to Councilmember Rollins' question, and we'll start with Yen.
Hi there. So my question is an issue question. What are your priorities concerning the delivery of public safety and police services in the community?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Rollins, could you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. It was, what are your priorities concerning the delivery of public safety and police services in the community?
Okay, got it. Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot, of course, especially this past year, about the police's role and accountability. You know, I think definitely ongoing training and education with policing with equity. Also relieving police officers of duties that they have that go far beyond policing, for instance, social services, so they can reserve their expertise for actual policing matters. I would be interested in discussing a requirement for body cameras, with some exceptions, of course. I would imagine there should be protocol around high sensitive situations, such as sex crimes. But for a number of reasons, I think body cameras is something that I can support. Not only the possibility of catching potential wrongdoings, but also capturing really good work, right? And heightening trust through transparency with the community. And then a couple other things that come to mind is the selection criteria for police officers, as well as recruitment towards ensuring our police force is one that reflects the diversity of the community being served. Another one that I've thought of is, or that I've heard about, is whenever serious incidents occur, to have an impartial community review of those incidents. So those are among some of the thoughts that I would support around police accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Tracy.
Thank you. Obviously this past year, police accountability has been huge on everybody's mind, locally and nationally. I think that Yen, a lot of what she was saying is right. We have to look at ways to have police doing police work and not social work as much. The police have been saying for years that they're being expected to do work that's not part of their job, and then as things got worse and worse, it was the public that was saying it and not the police, and so we need to be recognizing the fact that they've taken on more than they should in most communities. Also, looking at what training they have. I know that there's been a lot of training here in Olympia, particularly around equity and in policing. And I think that more of that is important. I think that having meetings with members of the community that and the police to try and grow some trust. I think one of the things that I think with hindsight that we need to look again at crowd control issues and whether or not chemicals can be used in crowd control. I think that it's been overused this past year, and I'm seeing a trend towards starting to use it less, but I'd like to see more of that. So there's a lot in that one. There's no way to get it through it in 2 minutes. But yeah, it's definitely on my mind, and definitely I have thoughts on what we can do to try and fix it.
Thank you. Next I have Dante.
So I see our issues with public safety, not just in the context of police and police reform, but I also, as I'm sure we all are deeply concerned with the growing militia activity we see in our community. I support Councilmember Gilman's proposal to look at what we could do at the local level, at city ordinance level, to perhaps change some of the activity, or at least enforce our laws as to the furthest extent possible. I also support body cameras as well, for the purposes that my colleague pointed out earlier, not just in order to capture criminal activity, but also to just to exonerate and to provide transparency to our community. And I think that's really important in all aspects of government, especially with our police departments. I also feel that while there is a national call to defund the police, I will say that I don't necessarily know if that is the approach that the city of Olympia should take at the moment. I have not seen the police budget in its entirety. And so I think that would be a premature call to make, especially when we need those body cameras in our department. And I realize that that's largely a fiscal issue for our community, and also a bandwidth issue in terms of staff and public records. But that is something that I would like to see in our community, and I would support it.
Thank you. And our last finalist for this question is Maria.
Yes, thank you. So I think we need to approach this issue with a lot of intent and collaboration with our community, as in the broadest term of that word. First and foremost, what's important to me is understanding what our community wants. And what's also really important to me is to center the voices of those who are most impacted by policing here in Olympia and understand what those unique needs might be. This is really, really, really important data that sometimes we don't do very well. We might rush through. And so I would be very much in the camp of making sure that we do a thorough job here. The second thing is understand what kind of calls are being responded to and address potential changes based on this data. So do we assess, it might be that we have assessed some budget shifts and that we need to create or strengthen existing programs, because it's really not fair for our police officers to be fielding things that they aren't necessarily trained for. And it's not fair to our community either to be getting responses from individuals that might not have the adequate training to address their needs. The third thing that I would say is make sure that we are completely up to date with the requirements of I-940 and implement the training that was created based off of that law in a cost neutral way. And the fourth thing is just those very general three terms. I think that we do have the ability to be brave, and I do have the ability to trailblaze with our policies. We don't have to stick to the status quo, and from what I've seen with this council, we don't. And so I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is that we can be as creative as we need to be in order to meet our community's needs.
Thank you. All right, we're on to the next question, and that is going to be coming from Councilmember Parsley, and we will start with Tracy.
Thank you all. I'm going to echo Councilmember Cooper. It's an honor to have all of you here, having read all your applications. It's impressive, all of you. So my question is in some ways real time, and we are about to consider the Thurston County Climate Mitigation Plan. We have struggled over 2 years on various aspects of climate mitigation. One such struggle is about climate justice and equity. So I would like to know how you would define climate justice and equity, especially how that might impact future implementation in terms of housing, homelessness crisis, and the economy and pandemic.
Okay, wow. Thank you very much for the question. One of the things with climate justice that the biggest thing we have to look at is how is the worst transgressions in the city. And I can almost guarantee you that the poorest people live around it. And that's typical with when it comes to climate justice issues, is that the first places that tend to get zoned industrial are next to the places where the people with the cheapest housing live. And that's been something that a lot of people have been looking at on a national scope and a state scope. It came up with some work that I was doing through a group that I was working with over the summer. And so that would be the first thing I would look at, is our zoning and how we've zoned in things that have turned out to be bad for the climate, bad for the environment, compared to where things are doing much better, and see why. And then the other issues, of course, we've got to look at things like the Deschutes situation. We need to be looking at our carbon footprint. I want to see, we just allowed a lot of new buildings to ADUs to be built. I want to see people looking at ways to build those greener. I want to encourage people who are doing any kind of new building or updating buildings to look at ways to build that. Sorry, I didn't see the 30 seconds.
There's a lot going on. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Next we have Dante.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Parsley. I would say that climate justice and equity, I think of as very much intentional consideration of the implementation of our climate policies and how we do that. So for example, if we are to create greener buildings or provide solar panels to various organizations or businesses within our community, or promote those, if you will, for those businesses, we should be doing the same for single family homes and apartments, complexes, and various other types of housing units throughout our community, different levels of income. And that is critical, because we have to ensure that as we are implementing our climate change approach, that we aren't just protecting and benefiting the most elite or the most privileged in our community. And so that's how I would define climate justice and equity.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria.
Thank you. Councilmember Parsley, there were a couple of components to that question. Would you mind repeating it for me?
Certainly. Define and talk about climate justice and equity and how it may impact our draft climate plan in terms of, or using as examples, housing, homelessness, crisis, the economy, and the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. So climate justice or environmental justice really is rooted in the idea of equity. And to me, equity is centering those that are most affected in the creation of policies, and in the implementation of those policies. I see climate issues really impacting everything that we do at the city, just as equity impacts everything that we do in the city. So I'll say climate is our environment, equity is like the central nervous system of what we do. And we should really be considering those two things in just about every single decision that we make, because it does have everything has an impact on people, and people have an impact on the environment. So to relate to a couple of the examples that you had. So we do need to be making sure that we prioritize our unsheltered community by strengthening programs, adding more funding, and making sure that we are sheltering individuals. That in itself has environmental impacts, and I think would be a small step that we can take. The creation of new housing, inevitably, as with the new zoning rules, we have to make sure that we are continuing with our low impact development guidelines and rules. And then I think that with this plan, we really do have to take into consideration how climate is going to be affecting us. You know, by 2050, it's projected that we're going to have 100+ king tides a year. We have an increasing amount of rain just because of our climate change, and we get 50% more rain than our notoriously rainy neighbor up north, Seattle. So we're going to be underwater quite literally if we don't act now. You know, that's in 30 years, but we have to act now.
Thank you.
Yes.
So the last finalist I have for this question is Yen.
Councilmember Parsley, you please repeat that question for me?
I probably should have made this shorter. I am sorry to all of you. Define and talk about climate justice and equity and how it may impact our climate mitigation plan implementation, especially in terms of housing, homelessness, crisis, and the pandemic and the economy.
Okay. I will do my best. You know, so when it comes to climate justice, I want to be honest right off the bat that it wasn't until I would say, you know, maybe even 2 or 3 years ago, I started really paying attention and being proactive about issues concerning climate justice or the environment. That's not to say that I don't care about the environment. And sometimes it's unpopular to say that you don't know that much about climate justice, especially in Olympia. But you know, for so long, I haven't seen myself, my family, people that look like me in those conversations. You know, for so long, I've connected being environmentally friendly, we'll say, with consumerism, right? So it's like, okay, these are the things that I need to buy or have in order to be to help with climate justice. And of course, like, yeah, I would love to buy an electric car. I would love to buy, you know, a bunch of hydro flasks or whatever. And I don't mean to minimize it, but that's just honest. I remember being at a college party, and we were talking. It was an evergreen college party, so there was a lot of environmental talk, and people were saying things about how, you know, at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We all want clean water, clean energy, renewable resources, you know, and then right the ladder. And I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, that's the right there. That's the divide, is that we don't all want the same things, right? Some of us want to make sure that our family has health care. Some of us want to drop our kids off at school and make sure that nothing bad's going to happen to them, much less a shooting. You know, some of us want to just make sure that we can get to the next job interview and have reliable transportation. And so I think there's a big divide there. I was really encouraged to read up on so many actions that have already occurred, even back in the 90s.
I'm so sorry.
Am I out?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't see the 30. Okay, respect. I digress.
No, it's like your brain's going. I know what it's like, and just multitask when you're really in the moment is hard. So it's very awkward for me to stop you, but I have to be fair.
Okay.
All right. So that concludes that question. All right. And so we're moving on. Did I mess up? Moving on to Councilmember Madrone's question, and we will start with Dante.
Well, thanks everybody for being here and for applying for this position. The city will soon be preparing for the next update of our comprehensive plan. What do you think are the most important areas to focus, and how would you like to improve these elements?
And Dante, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, Councilmember Madrone, good evening, and thank you for that question. I feel that the comprehensive plan needs to include equity in its next update. I believe it's updated every 8 years or so. So it's time for us to have that discussion and that conversation, and to implement not just equity, but racial equity and consideration for that in our comprehensive plan as well. I also believe that conversations around housing and homelessness are important to incorporate into the comprehensive plan as well. I feel that it touches somewhat on affordable housing in our recent update, but I feel that it very much does not account for the issues that we see in our community around the unsheltered. And that is something I would like to see improved as well. For race and equity, specifically, I think that the comprehensive plan should incorporate it throughout the plan. So in the various subjects of the comprehensive plan, there should always be a section, if you will, that in regards to race and equity and how it impacts transportation and how it impacts our environment and so on in our community. And because it is a forward thinking document, it's important for us to consider that, and we have to use that lens as we go about executing our plan.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria.
Dante, that was spot on. So how do I say that in different words? You know, in preparing for this, I did take a look at the comprehensive plan, and those quite literally were my notes. So I do think that the comprehensive plan is actually a really great document. It's forward thinking. I did notice very similar trends in that every single section had myriad sections. However, it didn't do a very good job of centering the community members or the issues that were important to community members that were most impacted by harms. And that's, again, in housing, that's in environment, that's in our infrastructure. And I think that it is going to be really important to not have a standalone, equity, diversity, and inclusion plan. It has to be embedded all throughout the document. I also, much like Ian said earlier about seeing diverse businesses, I want to be able to see that more in our community. We do have a handful of restaurants and restaurants that showcase art, but I would love for us to be intentional in the way that we support our community of color in being able to share their culture with us, share their food with us, share, whatever business they want with us. And I also want to say it's a very, very nitpicky thing, but being a naturalized citizen of the United States, I see the 30-second mark. I have a really, really visceral reaction to the word citizen, just written throughout the document. And, I think it's time for us to change the word to resident. It's such a tiny nitpicky thing, but it is very meaningful. It would be very, very meaningful for the communities that I work with and the neighbors that I have that identify themselves as residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Yen.
Yeah, so the two candidates before me hit the nail on the head. It's definitely equity. I have to be extra careful that I don't talk about this for too long because I could just go breakfast, lunch, and dinner about this. It's so important. We are learning more and more now that this is not a soft skill, right? It's not about, well, I would say it's not only about what feels good in your heart, but it also just touches everything, right? It touches everything. Equity should be in all policies. And also for those that might not care about how something feels in your heart, it makes bottom line sense. It's better business outcomes. And so when we talk about, our city's vitality, that's not without equity. It can't be achieved without truly implementing equity in all policies. So yes, I would like to do all of those even nitpicky things that some would think, take out or define character of the neighborhood. What does that mean? Citizen, let's update a little bit. And I'd love to see the new equity and social justice advisory board to be able to do a thorough review of not only the comprehensive plan, but all policies that the city makes. So I should stop there.
Thank you. It's so hard. I know we all want to tell you what's going on too, because it's pretty exciting what we're doing on our end that is really directly related to this. Anyhow, another time. So I now have Tracy.
I have to say, all my notes, they covered them all.
We laugh.
So going last, how do you add to this? One of the things that I was going to say also is I really want to see the Social Justice and Equity Commission review the comprehensive plan. Equity is important, but we have to hear from the people who have experienced not being in an equitable situation. Looking at things, because we're 7 people in this. There's 7 people on the commission, or the council, excuse me, and we don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. So having a group of people who, with more experience in this, looking over the comprehensive plan, they can point out things that aren't equitable, like the word citizen, like using character of a neighborhood. Something I learned in a meeting I was at, using the words brown bag lunch is apparently a bad thing. So things that we don't know that they can point out. And I think it's very important. Equity is definitely number one when it comes to the comprehensive plan. It needs to be looked at. It's not being in there, not having things about enough things about how the houseless community and trying to repair things there. We need more of that in the comprehensive plan, so that we can be forward thinking and can fix the problems that exist, and say what we want to see fixed. and that's what to me is missing.
Thank you. All right, we're to the last question. And then your closing remarks. So my question is, as many of you are aware, to run for office, you have to doorbell a lot of doors, and you're going to hear from a lot of different perspectives, which is really, really important to the job. This is kind of a question to ask you to kind of project yourself out into our neighborhoods, and what do you think are going to be the top 3 issues that you're going to be hearing from our community as you're doorbelling? And I will start, sorry, I was thinking to myself. I will start with Maria.
Perfect. So I think the 3, well, I mean, honestly, it's going to be different, right, at every single door, but generally, I believe that the 3 top issues are going to be economic recovery from the pandemic. We're still in the thick of it, and we are seeing our beloved shops closing down, and we're seeing some of our neighbors struggling. Police accountability, of course, at the forefront of people's minds because of the economic climate that we live in, and because we live in such a polarized time right now. And I think housing fairness and access as well are going to be there. Of course, all of these, as I had mentioned earlier, tie into climate and also tie into equity and how we should be approaching our work as a council. And so I think that those would be the 3 top issues that I would hear. And I would love to hear, what our community is thinking about. And if I were to be a part of this council, I would do my due diligence, maybe not door knocking because that's not necessarily safe, but do my diligence in making sure that I do reach out to the community and they get to know who I am and how I collaborate.
Thank you. Thank you. And for clarification, this is when it's safe to go doorbelling again. Okay, so next I have Yen.
Thank you. So through the application process, we have a high priorities question. And I thought to myself, well, everything's a high priority. So I tried to have as many conversations with different community members as possible. And through that, there were definite trends. The first one being public health and safety. That would include concerns about police accountability, about our houseless community, about the health impacts of the current pandemic. Second would be economic recovery and sustainability as we grow. I heard a lot of vulnerability and fear around job loss, being able to afford your rent or your mortgage, and business closures as well. And then the third would be climate justice. When things happen, and they'll continue to happen, it's easy to lose sight of our long-term goals. And I think that's just a cultural, societal thing. But it's important to remember that, every day that goes by, it truly is dwindling time for when we can course correct. So my 3 areas that I've heard from the community are public health and safety, economic recovery, and sustainability as we grow. And then third being climate justice.
Thank you. Next I have Tracy.
Thank you. So prior to COVID, when I was helping door knocking, the big thing that came up anytime somebody wanted to talk was houselessness, was the homeless community. That was definitely number one. I think that right now, I think because of the pandemic, that would probably be equal to the economy and recovering the economy and healthcare. And again, looking at it through an equity lens, they're all interconnected. A lot of people are worried about the fact that they lost their health care when they lost their job. And then there's people who are concerned about the safety of going downtown because they perceive the houseless community is not safe. And then there's the issue of the houseless community themselves not being in a safe situation. They're out in the cold and the rain, and they don't have the opportunity for hygiene that those of us who have homes have, and that's huge with the pandemic. So I think that all of those are very much interconnected, and with the houselessness, the economy, and healthcare.
Thank you. Next, I have Dante.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Selby. I would say that one of the top issues I think that we would hear is around economic relief and the cost of living in Olympia. I feel that, I've spoken to a number of people in our community, and they feel that the cost of rent and to live in our city is just becoming unbearable for many people. The Thurston County Regional Planning Council actually projected that Olympia has become one of the more expensive places to live in the community. And I think that is in part because we are accommodating so much growth here in our community. And so I think to prevent further increases in that, we need to intentionally pay attention to that in order to provide relief to people, particularly those who are unhoused or on the verge of being unhoused. Public safety, I feel, is something that you would hear from members of our community, feeling safe in the streets of Olympia, and not just simply in our downtown, but also on the outskirts of our city. We've seen activity slowly increasing throughout our community, and I think that's something that you would want to hear, that you would hear from members of our community. And I think people would want to know, what actions are the council going to take to mitigate some of those experiences. And lastly, I think just the issue of homelessness and the unsheltered, and what can we do to provide relief to those who are within our community who are unsheltered.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So we got through it. Did I miss anybody? That was 7 rounds. Okay. Whew. So I'd like to thank you very, very much. So at this point, you guys can take a deep breath. You can go into the waiting room. When you get to watch the other finalists, what?
I thought you were giving them a closing statement.
Oh, I knew I was going to blow it. I was so relieved I got through the checking out the boxes.
Very good job, Mayor. I know I couldn't keep this all going, so.
And the timers. Okay, so, all right, thanks for that reminder, and I'm sorry if I confused everybody. All right, so now you have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we are going to start with, oh gosh, who did I end off with? We're going to start with Yen.
We have 1 minute?
1 minute.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this process. I think even tomorrow, I can't believe that I'm here right now. I just care so much about the community, like most everyone on this call, and I don't have all the answers, admittedly. If there's a policy I don't know about it, please know I will read. I will read so much, and I will talk to people, and I will do my homework to figure it out. I welcome and celebrate differences. I have a human approach, and not only do I lead with my heart and the things that I've seen, but I listen, and I welcome dissenting voices. So thank you so much. I hope to have the opportunity to partner with you all in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Tracy.
Thank you very much, Mayor and council members for giving me this opportunity to be here and talk to you guys. You all have the toughest job tonight of all of us. We can sit here and talk, but you guys got to decide which one of us sounds best. Honestly, I went into this knowing that you can't make a wrong decision tonight. I'd love to be on the city council. I love Olympia. I've lived in 4 different states, and honestly, this is the only one that's ever felt like home. And so I really want to work with Olympia, and I do a lot of volunteer work, and I just feel like this would be an extension of that. And so I'm hoping that I can have this opportunity, but honestly, you can't go wrong tonight. And that's what I want to share with you guys is that you have a tough job tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I forgot to give you your 30 seconds, but you nailed it. All right. Next, I have Dante.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Selby and council members. I just want to say that while we have gone on with a litany of the problems that we've had or that we do have in the city of Olympia, I just want to say that Olympia is definitely a special place. I chose to come here and I chose to settle here with my family. And it is a place of an incredible promise. And I just want that same experience for so many of the residents in our community. I see Olympia as a place that is so, in many regards, ahead of its time and progressive in so many different areas when it comes to local government. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to be before the council and to speak to members of our community tonight.
Thank you. And next I have Maria.
I also want to express my sincerest thank you to you all and a good luck because little did you know that holding room was going to be just a very cheerful place for the candidates. We had a lot of fun there and we're able to decompress. But ultimately I do want to see somebody on the council that cares, that is transparent, that listens to understand, that is willing to do the work required to be prepared and informed to make decisions, that operates with humility, that is collaborative, that is kind. And I think we all did a pretty good job of showing, exemplifying that. But I really wish you luck, and I thank you for your time today. And thank you to the community who is here as well and listening in and listening into our dialogue, and hopefully we'll be able to provide feedback once somebody's elected.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we're done. Okay. So yay, and thank you for your patience with me trying to manage some different things. And what we are going to do now is Susan's going to take you on the other side of the wall and you can listen to the other finalists, and so they can be part, or so you can listen, which they didn't get that advantage, but of course. But so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So 5 minutes. I've got 7:42 on my clock, and so I'm doing higher level math, and it's it'll be 47. No, sorry, I didn't add right. Sorry. Used to be a business person. No, that's right, 47. Yeah, so 7:47, we'll come back and we'll welcome our second set of finalists. So thank you.
Thank you, panelists.
Thank you. Councilmember Cooper.
Mayor, I'm gonna stay here, but I'm gonna have my video off for a few moments.
Okay.
So.
So I just found out I made the classic mistake of turning my camera off, but not my microphone. So there's a lot of banging around. I'm sorry. Hopefully I didn't swear. All right, we all here? Right, because I got to switch because I switched my view, so I can't see Renata's name, but I'll trust that she's there. Okay, so thank you for your patience. There's patience that's been required on many levels for this evening as we work through a very new process that council approved earlier this evening. That's what took the part of the 45 minutes for us to get to the first panel. And a large part of that discussion was difficult because this process is one of the toughest that I've experienced in my, I don't know, what am I, 7 years? Something on council. And that's because there's so many qualified candidates. So I just want to congratulate you for making it this far in this process. And we really enjoyed our first panel of finalists and worked out some of the kinks with our timing. So hopefully you don't have to deal with some of my my timing issues. So the format for tonight that we approved involves using a process called ranked choice voting. And just for some context, back in October of this year, we passed a resolution expressing support for ranked choice voting. And when planning to begin the process for this, filling this vacancy, we thought, what a great opportunity for us to share it with the community, raise awareness about what ranked choice voting is, to assist with this process. And so part of our presentation earlier this evening was from our auditor, Thurston County Auditor, Mary Hall. And she walked through with a couple other advisors from Fair Vote Washington to talk through what the process is going to be for tonight. And so basically, sorry, I lost my notes. What we're going to be doing is after the end of all of the interviews, we have a ballot that we will show up on the screen, and we will rank the 7 finalists from 1 to 7, each one of us. And we will be doing that live in our rooms. And just so you know, we're all in City Hall tonight. We wanted to make this as transparent as possible so that we are all in the same area, but in different rooms for COVID. But we will have our ballots collected on camera and we'll be dropping them off in council chambers on camera. Mary Hall will then tabulate with witnesses all of the votes live on camera. And then they'll walk us through the ranked choice voting process. And then at the end of that, if we get to a winner, we will have a motion brought to appoint that person. There's an opportunity if there's a very, very close 1 and 2, which can happen when there's just few voters, as there's only 6 of us voting. So the chance of a very close race is high. So we've reserved the opportunity at that point if we want to possibly bring 2 people back. So I just wanted to prepare you that there is that small chance. And so as far as what we're going to be doing, the process for this evening, we each have a question that we pre-selected previously this evening, and we will go through in order. I'll start with the order that I drew your names. So I drew Robbie. Is it okay if I use first names for this part? Okay, so I drew Robbie first, then Kento, then Holly. And so we will start with a different person with each new question. So you don't always, it's not, so it spreads out who answers first and last. So we have 7 questions. And then the first part of it is actually just a 2-minute introduction. And then we have 7 questions, which you get also 2 minutes to respond to. And then you have 1 minute for a closing comment. So that's the process. Any questions from anybody? Okay, excellent. And I've got other eyes on me if I mess up the order or the timing of something. So just flag me as well. And also as questions are asked, feel free to have somebody repeat the question. I know sometimes it's hard to always follow all the questions, but when it comes to your turn. So with that, let me get my other little sheet out here. Sorry. All right. So the first question is from, it's not really a question. The first opportunity you have is to introduce yourself and share with us why you want to serve on the city council and what skills and knowledge you bring. And you have 2 minutes, and at 30 seconds, I will show you this. Right. So the first person I have is Robbie.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Robbie Kessler. I am a lifelong resident of the South Sound. I attended college at the University of Washington and law school at Arizona State University. I moved back to the Olympia area in 2007 after graduation. My husband and I have made this our home. We have 2 young children, and my husband is a co-owner of a local business. I'm interested in serving as a city council member because I think that Olympia will benefit from having someone with my personal and professional perspective. I believe that I am the best applicant for this position. Experience matters, especially in the shortened time frame that this appointment process provides. If appointed, I would be ready to hit the ground running and contribute immediately. I would seek to gain the trust and support of the community throughout the process of this 10 months and beyond. I would like to highlight some of my relevant professional experience. As general counsel for the Chehalis tribe, I was a department director that was tasked with overseeing a budget. I worked closely with other departments to accomplish the goals set forth by their business committee. In addition, I advised the business committee on legal and policy matters related to government and economic development. I also worked on strategic planning, community engagement, and I had a lot of experience with intergovernmental relationships. I also have experience at the state level as nonpartisan counsel to the Consumer Protection and Business Committee and Local Government Committee at the House of Representatives. I was tasked with drafting and analyzing bills and staffing the bill through the legislative process, working closely with legislators and stakeholders.
Thank you. Just to be fair, I do have to give the same amount of time to everybody. That's the hard part of my job, but thank you. Next, I have Kento.
All right. Well, first, I wanted to say welcome back to City Hall and welcome back to my neighborhood. We missed you, and I hope we get to see more of you soon. My name is Kento Wazegami. I live downtown on Legion Way with my husband, our dog, and roommate. Together, me and my husband own a small business on 4th Avenue. And by day, I work at the nonprofit on a mission to end homelessness in Thurston County. I am looking forward. I'm definitely proud of my identity. I am the son of an Alaskan Native, and I'm enrolled to the Native village of Quigilinguk. And my father immigrated to the United States from Japan in 1971. So it's a little nerve-wracking imagining that I could be here today. I'm running I decided to seek the appointment because I am really excited about the future of the city. It may look a little bit bleak right now with COVID and all the challenges that we are facing, but we have done some amazing things that I have been proud to be a part of. We have gone and we made national news in approving the Housing Options Code amendments, which are going to open the door, more of our neighborhoods to more people and more homes of all shapes and sizes. And I'm looking forward to continuing that policy. And I'm looking forward to being able to speak out on behalf of all the people that I care about here, about being able to represent downtown and being able to represent small business owners, being able to represent the nonprofit community, and being able to connect all of those diverse voices and making sure that everyone is heard.
Thank you. Next, I have Holly.
Hi, good evening. I'm Holly Davies. You know me as the chair of the Heritage Commission. I also work as a toxicologist at the Department of Health on chemical policy, encouraging the use of safer alternatives and preventing people's exposure to hazardous chemicals. I did similar work in King County for their hazardous waste program and at Ecology in the solid and hazardous waste programs. Before that, I taught at local colleges and universities. Since March, I've mostly been activated to our COVID response, and I haven't been doing most of my regular work. I've worked as a case investigator, which was calling people who tested positive to learn about their illness, where they may have been exposed or may have exposed others, giving them public health guidance, and asking them about their close contacts and talking to their contacts. I've talked to hundreds of people who are sick. They're often worried about themselves and their family members who may also be sick, and they're afraid of losing their jobs. I've also gone into a prison to test prisoners as part of stopping the outbreak there, and I've worked on the training team to train all of our new investigators as our numbers go up. I wanted to mention one aspect of the Heritage Commission that I've been involved in, which is reviewing permit applications for changes to historic structures. While this is regulatory, we work with residents to allow them to meet their goals. So for example, if someone wants to put an addition, we help them ensure the addition is distinct from the main house, as in the Secretary of Interior standards. Sometimes we learn more about a house, and other times we help residents appreciate their home more. There are good candidates here tonight with their own strengths. With me, you get a scientist who's used to gathering information and logically evaluating it, working with many different stakeholders, asking questions, and recommending actions, even when we don't have as much information as we want. I'm someone with a record of volunteer work, leading an advisory committee for the city, and experience on a town council in another city. I'm also used to incorporating equity tools into my work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, got through the first round. Now we're going to go to questions from council members. And our first question is from Councilmember Gilman, and we will start with Kento.
Right. So here's the first question for the three of you. Each council person comes from constituencies or interest groups. We each carry political views. How will you reconcile your constituency's desires and your personal politics with the broader goals and needs of the city of Olympia and our community?
That is a very difficult prospect ahead of us, and it's something that I've been having to work with over the past year. It's really hard to go to work and go to your office and work with people experiencing homelessness and see everything that they go through, and then turn around and talk to your employee and listen to him talk about having to wake the same person up day after day. I know that these are trying times, and I know that, but I think deep down, although we're all looking at it from a different angle, all of us want the same thing. We all want, small businesses aren't out to get people on the streets. They don't want anyone to be on the streets, and nonprofits aren't out there to be able to try and coddle people. We have a genuine goal that we want people to live the best life that they have. And I think downtown residents are full of compassion, but we are definitely hoping that other parts of the city will help take up some of the slack from us. So it's been, the biggest way that we do that is that we listen and we talk to each other, and we realize that we all are after the same goals and the same views. We just use different words to talk about it, and that's the perspective I want to bring. I want to bring the lived perspective of my neighbors downtown. I want to bring the perspective of other people who have been having a real hard time with the COVID crisis and having to adapt in some really brilliant ways. And I'm looking forward to representing the views of the nonprofit community who have been on the front lines of this for years and have a lot more ideas that we want to bring forward to people.
Thank you. Next I have Holly.
Hi. First, we should look for agreement and make sure it's not set up as a false dichotomy. Sometimes this happens, especially like with energy efficiency. So example, like our fire trucks have been retrofitted so they can use their lights without running their engines. And this reduces the fuel used, saves money, reduces diesel exposure to our residents, and more especially to the firefighters who are exposed to the diesel every day. So sometimes if you look at the goals, you can find more agreement and you don't need to do trade-offs. Of course, sometimes there are trade-offs. So one example that comes to mind from the Heritage Commission is the Three Magnets building, or as we call it, the old Sears building. The proposal was to put windows on the large windowless wall, which is, of course, a distinctive feature. Dwayne Harkness and I were the Heritage Review Committee members that were on the joint design review for that building. And I voted for that project because the reuse of the building, even with the windows in the upper floors, the added housing downtown, the economic benefits of having that building reused. And of course, part of the reuse of the building is the environmental benefits of reusing the existing building. So all of that was more important than maintaining the windowless wall. So being able to look for the better good of everyone in the city. And the comp plan helps us to do that because the comp plan was such a big, big thing with so many people from the community and from the city building this plan. That gives us a good place to look for the larger good of the city. One thing that's really important is to listen to everyone, to seek input from so many different people. And like I said, to really listen to them and take what they say into account. In my job, I get a lot of public comments on things. And sometimes the public commenters are quite mean, but I always still listen to them because sometimes even when someone's mean, they have a really good point that actually affects the work that we do, and take that into account.
Thank you. We've reached your time limit.
Okay. I don't see your 30 seconds. I think it's behind your name. Okay, but thank you. Not the name that I can see.
Right? Mayor, you got to go closer to your neck. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. We're learning what's working. So next we have Robbie.
Okay, thank you for that question. So I think that the interests of the city really rise above the interests of any one person or one interest group. I have a background in nonpartisan work. I employ my critical thinking skills, and I'm meticulous about gathering the information necessary to make decisions. I go back to the goals set forth by the community, and I would work towards implementing those in a way that seeks input and engages the community in additional ways. So I also don't think that I have a strong background in any one interest group at this point. So I'm really interested in employing those nonpartisan skills and community engagement background that I have.
Thank you. All right, now we're on to question number 3 from Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Selby, and thank you all for being here. It's really important that you put yourself out there, and I'm excited about how qualified all of you are. It's a really tough decision, so thank you. So Olympia has a council manager form of government, or as our former city manager said, it's a strong council. And a strong relationship between the council as a body and the city manager is imperative to the success of our city. What is your understanding of the checks and balances of separation of legislative and executive powers in this form of government, and how will you adapt to it?
All right, I've got Holly leading off.
Well, it's important to look in the council and the manager form of government, the different people's roles. So the council's role is more as a board of directors and not to get into the nitty gritty and the details of how to implement policy. So the policy direction, and really has to interact with the manager, the city manager, and allow the staff members, the great staff members that we have in Olympia, to use their expertise and to carry out the implementation. With the trying to think of the checks and balances. In some ways, the checks and balances are the other council members, the city manager. I would imagine there's no formal process, that I know of, but that if someone was overstepping their roles, I assume that they would be gently nudged back in, reminded of their roles. Because as I said, it's important to keep to the roles. I don't see any problem fitting into that. I think I understand what the roles are with the city manager being the only the employee that the council hires and that the council can fire, because of course it's not an elected position.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. All right, next I have Robbie.
Thank you. So I think that the city management, or the strong council manager relationship that you just identified, is very similar to the government that I worked for while I was at the Chehalis tribe, in that I was a department director, and really our goal was to work together and accomplish the goals as set forth by the elected body. And they really spent a lot of time seeking community input. So it was like the council gathered the goals of the community. And just like for the city of Olympia, there's the council priorities, there's the comprehensive plan, and the council is responsible for making sure that those goals are met and creating policies that work towards meeting those goals. And then you have the city manager and the city staff that can further implement, but work independently once they're given that direction. So I think in terms of checks and balances, it's already built into the system, and there would be mechanisms in place to make sure that all of those goals are being carefully accomplished.
Thank you. And last for this question, I have Kento.
Well, it's really interesting for me to think about like the council manager relationship, because right now I'm kind of on the other end of it. At my nonprofit, I work for my executive director, who in turn works for our board of directors. And we see it as a really collaborative process where everyone brings as much as they can. As staff, we work to bring to our board of directors as much information, as many options, and as much choice as possible. And in return, our board of directors works to take all of that in and to offer us really clear and concise direction on where we want the organization to go, and the new tactics that we want to try, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how I see the council manager relationship. I think that we do an amazing job of and we have a really amazing city staff who are probably like experts in their fields, and have in my time on the planning commission, I have seen them bring forward so much information that sometimes it's a little overwhelming. And I think that the role of the council is to take all of that in and to offer really clear and coherent directions so that staff know where they're going, working together as one. And I look forward to being a part of that.
Thank you. On to question number 4 from Councilmember Rollins.
All right. So my question is is an issue question, and it's, what are your priorities concerning the delivery of public safety and policing services in the community? And who's?
We'll start with Robbie.
Thank you. That is a very good question. I would be new to this issue, and I am looking forward to engaging the community and the staff more. I did briefly meet with the interim chief, and just to learn more about the current city priorities, and I thought that that was a very good step, and I would rely on the work group that the city has already formed, because I think that they're doing a really good job engaging with the community, and I look forward to seeing more from that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Kento.
This debate about the role of the police and public safety has been on my mind for years now. I actually used to live in Minneapolis, and I got to see how the Minneapolis Police Department interacted with its citizens there. So although George Floyd's death was very tragic, I actually was not entirely surprised. More so about the time than like the eventuality. I think what we're looking for here in Olympia, though, is really going to be about, I think, reimagining the role of the police, because we asked them to do a lot of things that they're not trained for and did not sign up for. We asked them to be social workers. We asked them sometimes to provide critical care. We asked them to make we ask them to intervene in situations that other people are probably better handled to do so because they've had the training. And so I think, the police, and I signed up for the job of catching bad guys, of stopping robberies, of stopping murders, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to opening a conversation about redirecting resources so that the police don't have to do all of that, and they can go back to doing what they were trained to do, and what they want to do, and what we actually want them to do. I think that they have a role, and I want to get them back to that role.
Thank you. And last, we have Holly.
So first, I'd like to start by saying that I'm not an expert in policing, and I don't want to second guess our police department. And I recognize the risks that they go through in their job. So we have this plan to reimagine public safety that's going forward over the year, and that is a really good place to start. We really need to look at what our community needs. Different residents have different experiences with the police and different expectations of the police. So getting a good view of that. We need to look at what our police should do and what should be done by other people. As Kento was just saying, we ask them to do a lot of things that might not be best done by our police force. Part of this is about transparency in what the police do. For example, how many resources are spent on property crime, on violent crime, on helping mentally ill community members? Because we can't know what's going on until we have more information about what the police is doing. And because our public safety is greater than just our police department. It's not just about training. We talk a lot about more training, and it's more important to look at what training. What is it that we want them to do? And to encompass everything that needs to be done by the residents. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we are on to question 5 from Councilmember Parsley, and we will start with Kento.
Hello, thank you to echo Councilmember Cooper. This is quite an impressive group of people, and you make it difficult to make a decision because you're all very worthy, okay? My question got a little long, so if you need it to be repeated, please say so. I have no problem with that. We're about to consider the Thurston County Climate Mitigation Plan. It will be coming to council sometime in the end of January, early February. We've been working for 2 years on this process. One of the major questions that has come out of the Climate Mitigation Plan that we have not actually settled is, how do you define and what do you do about climate justice and equity? And how does that fit into our plan? For example, how does it interact with housing and homelessness crisis, the economy, and the pandemic? So define and talk about climate justice and equity, potentially with one of those 3 things.
While it's not been like the main word that I would use in the policies I've advocated for around housing and moving closer together, it definitely does have a climate aspect to it. The closer together that we live, the more space that we can share, the less space that we will need to pave, the more we are able to walk to important destinations like grocery stores and parks, the less we will need to drive, which reduces our fuel consumption and reduces particulate matter going off into the oceans, which a new study has found is one of the big killers of salmon, one that has been some particulate that comes off of tires. But it does have a social justice aspect of it too. In the Northwest, we tend to flip the script, and instead of having inner city poverty, we have the suburbanization of poverty, whereas all of the money and the majority gather into the cities and leave people marooned out in the suburbs that are overbuilt, that they cannot afford, and need to be and are required to own cars in order to get around, which adds to cost, burdens people who really can't afford it. So I'm excited about looking at this, at how we can encourage more policies to help us move closer together and create more walkable neighborhoods as one way of achieving the climate justice goals that we want as a city.
Thank you. Next, I have Holly.
Hi. This is our climate action is a really good example of Olympia leading on an issue and being a model for other jurisdictions. So I think Olympia has done a really great job with their climate. With all of the we should look at an equity lens through all of our policies. And we really want to look at policies that don't uphold the status quo with institutional racism and inequities, but really through everything, look with an equity lens to reduce the equities that we find in our communities. One of the things with climate policy, as with other issues, is that we have uneven costs, where the people who are making money are not the same people who are bearing the costs of these policies. And that's something that's hard to fight against when you're looking at people who are making all of the money. The homelessness and the housing definitely has an interaction. All of this interacts, as Lisa asked. And we have a good strategy to address homelessness that we have developed with community input that we should look at with, obviously with equity, but also with our climate justice, with transportation, walkable neighborhoods, the idea of having the neighborhood nodes where people can walk to places and don't have to get into their cars, with our transit, where we have to look at where the buses go, supporting people's bicycling with having bicycle lanes and ways to make bicycling a more viable option for work, for commuting. And just the other thing that comes to mind quickly with the housing policy, of course, is the environmental contamination with chemicals. And that's where we tend to put the lower income housing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our last finalist with this question is Robbie.
Thank you. This is a good question. I think at some level, the ability to be engaged and really caring about the environmentalism and climate issues is a privilege. And I think that viewing that policymaking through that equity lens will be important for people that are struggling with basic necessities. It may be hard to engage and seek support and drive the changes necessary that we will need to make as a community. So I think that accessible communication and a strong community engagement will be paramount to the success. And I would also seek to make policies that allow everyone really to see have the full community to be involved and able to experience the benefits that these sustainable and protective initiatives will have on the future, even if that's hard to imagine at this point.
Thank you. So we're on to question number 6, and that's from Councilmember Madrone, and we will start with Holly.
So thanks everybody for applying, for being here tonight. Congratulations on making it this far. The city will soon be preparing for the next update of our comprehensive plan. What do you think are the most important areas to focus, and how would you like to improve these elements?
Right. So Holly?
Hi, thank you. So the comp plan, as we know, is this really large interconnected document. One thing that would be really important is to make it a living document and make it relevant in the lives of Olympians as we go through the years, even in between the updates. Right now, there's not very much about racial equity or any kind of equity that's in the plan. The update is a great opportunity to look at the whole plan with an equity lens and not put it in a separate chapter, but have it kind of throughout the plan with all of our other goals. And not just racial equity. One thing I've been thinking about lately is ableism. And I don't think the city has really done much on ableism. Questions about, say, parking. You know, are there parking available for people who need handicap parking throughout the city and in important areas? The housing, I think my favorite part of the comp plan is the housing. It's been really useful to be able to point to the housing in the comp plan and look at our larger goals as we've been looking at housing. And again, it's integrated so many important things with transportation, mixed use areas, looking at high density so that we can also maintain open space and the variety of housing. There's parts about preserving existing housing that I really like. And just, I think, continuing as we've been doing to try to remove the barriers to having housing, the barriers that are under control of the city council, like zoning and impact fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Robbie.
Thank you. So I am very interested in the comprehensive plan, and from a different lens, I recently had the opportunity to sit through several presentations from the Ruckle House Center and their roadmap to Washington's future. And what really struck me is the work that they've been doing related to making sure that there's metrics applied to ensure that the comprehensive plans are meeting those goals. And I think that will be important for any future update. And also, I want to make sure that the document that at the city level, it reflects the community's goals. But I would also like to make sure that we are taking the time to look at that research to make sure that the comprehensive plan is helping us meet the goals, and look towards the research that's being done related to tracking our progress. I think that that's one of my personal goals across everything is communication and then tracking the progress being made towards the goals and the policies implemented.
Thank you. Next, I have Kento.
The comprehensive plan is, I thought I was done reading long documents when I graduated from Evergreen. But I am really excited at the prospect of the next comprehensive plan revisions. I'm really looking forward to diving in on housing and land use, because I think that this council has led this community in trying to move towards a different view of how we use land, of how we allocate space, and how many people can live in a certain neighborhood. And I think this community has definitely followed and come around a lot, and is had a significant shift of opinion since our current comprehensive plan was drafted in 2014. I think that in the next comprehensive plan, we should codify that. We should set that as our goal, and I think that is going to be something that I will be closely looking at when that time comes. I'm also looking forward to focusing on transportation, because we can have a city that where we don't need cars. Olympia is only about 5 miles in diameter, so you could walk it like in maybe an hour or two end to end. That is that compactness allows us to have so many more options, because we can run shorter bus routes that happen much faster. I think that Olympia should be a leader on that, working with other regional partners. And I'm looking forward to having those kinds of conversations when we get into the next edition of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Wow, we're whipping through this. So now I've got my question, which is the last council question, and then we'll have 1 minute for your closing comments. So you have 2 minutes for this question, and it's anyone that is thinking about being on council has to think about a campaign, and to campaign you have to, meet a lot of people, hear from a lot of different constituents. Doorbelling when it's safe is the way that we would normally do that. So what do you think are the top 3 issues needing to be addressed that you might hear at the door in a typical neighborhood of Olympia? And I will start with, sorry, I lost my spot. Robbie.
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I think that I am a very engaged community member. I have identified a few goals of my own that I put in my application that I really got from listening to community members already. So I think one of the main goals that we're going to hear about is homelessness, and another goal would be this kind of goes hand in hand, and one of my main interests really is creating partnerships with other jurisdictions. So I think that would go hand in hand with homelessness and continuing the work that's already being done on the regional level, and asking for more state assistance or federal assistance. And then finally, I time and time again hear from my counterparts, busy working families, that it's hard to stay engaged because communication is somewhat difficult. So I would really like to work on some metrics that are really easily accessible on the city website. I know that some of the buzzwords are dashboards and one-pagers, but something along those lines that can link back to the city goals, or to link back to programs and policies that are already in place and being worked on, so that when you are out and about, you can reference those, you can point to work that the city has successfully been doing already when you are engaging with constituents that are questioning what's happening really. So I think it's really important to create a better avenue to engagement. And finally, I think that COVID has increased public participation. I think being able to log in is easier for a lot of people. So I think we should make sure that for as many negative impacts COVID has had on our lives, that would be one that we would look towards in the future, to making sure that we take what we've learned right now and can continue that engagement in the future.
Thank you. Next, I have Kento.
The 3 issues at the door, well, that is going to be fun, and I look forward to getting back to the doors. I stopped counting how many I've knocked on over the years in this town. I know that I know that our neighbors are going to be concerned about homelessness. And I think that a lot of people may not necessarily understand the intricacies of it, and who does what, and what goes where. They just know that it's a problem. They don't want to see their neighbors go through something like that, and they want somebody to do something about it. And while I know that it's not the primary role of the city council, I know that there are ways that we can make a difference. I know that we have made a difference and been a leader in a very trying time, and I look forward to working to be able to do to expand on that. I think we're also going to hear a lot about small business support. And I know that everyone is worried about whether their favorite restaurant is going to make it or not to the other side. I was really sad that Dillinger's, I wasn't able to make it. And I'm hoping that we don't add too many more people to that list. So I'm really looking forward to having conversations about how we can best support small business owners and to help them get onto the other side. And I think that the other one that people are going to want to talk about is going to be parking. I know that it may seem like it's not a thing right now, but we will get through the pandemic and people will want to come back and resume their daily lives. And right now, people have a thing about wanting to park where they're going. I get it. So I think that I look forward to reopening the conversation about a municipal parking garage to help to provide another way to support businesses downtown. And I am excited to have those conversations too at the door.
Thank you. And Holly, check marks off. Sorry.
So from what I've heard, I think the top three issues that I would hear if I knocked on doors are homelessness, police and public safety, and sustainability, which are all topics that we've touched on in earlier questions. All of these are interrelated and with each other and with other issues. You know, some people avoid downtown because they see unhoused people and are afraid of potential crime. And I didn't include small business in my top three, but addressing homelessness and public safety also improves the business environment for the small businesses downtown. One thing for all of the issues, the top issues that we talk about, it's important to do a lot of community outreach, and it's especially important that this outreach be accessible beyond just the public meetings law. So for example, a meeting that I participated in for lead reduction in communities in King County, it was at a community center on a Saturday when people could attend. It had interpreters, it had food, and children were welcome. And that's a very different type of meeting than expecting people to come at night or a certain time during the day, expecting people to have childcare, not having interpreters and all of that. So we really need to reach out and make everything accessible.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the council questions. Congratulations, you take a deep breath. We have 1 more minute to give us some closing remarks and maybe something we missed that you wished you had been asked. I know it's only a minute, but and so going in the same order, we'll start with Kento.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to even apply for this. There are so many ideas that I have. There are so many policies that I want to pursue, and there are so many roads that we can take towards building up this weird and wacky town into something that we can all be truly proud of, and where we all feel like we have a place. I know that we can do this because I've heard it from so many different people from all of the different roads that I travel through here in town and all the different communities that I get to interact with on a daily basis. I know that we are a smart town, and I know that we can figure this out together, and I'm really excited to be able to be a part of that. I hope I can count on your vote, and because I want to go on that journey with you and get our town to where we know it can be.
Thank you. Next, I have Holly.
Some of my values include helping to make people's lives better and giving back to the community. It's why I went into biology, why I work for the Department of Health, and why I volunteer for the city. I've really enjoyed being on the Heritage Commission, and I look forward to being involved in a different capacity to help the city. I haven't talked about it in any of the questions, but of course, I'm a wife, a mother, a runner, interacting with the city, and I also want it to be better and want to help it become better and help the residents of our city.
Thank you. And final is Robbie.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Thank you again for inviting me here tonight. And I think I'll just wrap up with in addition to my professional experience, I am an engaged community member. I volunteer for several community organizations and have served on nonprofit boards. My combination of law school and professional experience really makes me uniquely qualified to serve as an effective council member. I know the role of department managers and other city employees. I know how ideas and policies become law, how laws should be written, and how laws interact with other laws. I really know the importance of relationship building and intergovernmental cooperative agreements and all of those regional planning things, and I would look forward to furthering those. And I applied for this position because I'm invested in the community and I believe I can help. So again, thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Wow, that was very, very informative. And thank you so much again. Like we've said numerous times, and we will continue to say over the course of this evening, the caliber of the folks that we've been speaking with tonight, you guys just, it's going to be one of the toughest decisions that we've had to face in a long time. So what we get to do now is Susan will magically move you over onto the other side of the wall so you can watch the process unfold as we vote. And so we'll see you later. And I guess now is the time that we talk about the next steps as a council. And I think I'll wait until Susan moves, because we're going to need to get Mary Hall back up here and some of the other cameras need to be turned back on. So well, hold on a second. Councilmember Cooper.
Oh, I guess, sorry, you're waiting till the candidates move over. I'll hold my comment.
Yeah. I know Susan is just incredibly busy trying to make all of this work. So, there we go. All right. Are we there? Okay, there we are. So thanks for hanging with me on that, council. Like I keep saying, this is new, and hopefully it will help other people be more polished if they try it. So I think right now we just need to talk about the ballot and Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. I'd like to recommend that we go into executive session to talk about qualifications.
Before we vote.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It won't undo it. It says the video's been disabled, but I unmuted it so they can hear you.
It'll just take one moment.
Okay.
Okay.
So we didn't get a firm answer from Mark Barber whether we needed a second for that. I think normally for
it's noticed as part of the agenda, so I don't know either.
Okay.
Generally, in order to go into executive session, would require simply that it be part of the agenda.
Okay.
So it is been put on the agenda. So, you can go into executive session limited to only discussing qualifications of the candidates who you have interviewed.
Okay. I just want to make sure I don't do anything wrong. So if our attorney says, and it makes sense that we did notice it as a potential action, what we would do is we would select how much time, and we can't come back sooner than that time. We can come back and extend it if we need more time. And then as well, we talked about convening as a council in chambers if everyone's comfortable with our masks and socially distanced, so we can discuss qualifications. So I want to find out from council if any of you are uncomfortable with meeting in person, and I totally respect that. And we can go on another, we have a Zoom link, right, Susan, for exec if we need to go into it remotely. Yes. So I just need to know whether we need to log out and come back in our separate pods, or if you want to meet in person in chambers with masks on, socially distanced.
I'm okay standing in the chambers.
Okay.
Me too.
There's no one else in there. So, I mean, Mary and her team would move out into the lobby while we do this. So now we need to decide, do you want half hour, 45 minutes, knowing that we can't come back sooner?
I would start with 30 then, knowing that.
30? Does that sound like a thumbs up? Okay. So at this point, we will recess into executive session. Let me find my pursuant to RCW 42.330.1101H to evaluate qualifications of the candidates. We will reconvene. It's 8:43. So now I'm not going to do the math. I'm just sorry. It's like, I think it's going to be 9. I don't know. Sorry, my brain, you guys. It's like
13.
It'll be half an hour from 8:43.
Yeah, 9:13.
Great. So we're gonna log out of this meeting, and thanks for your patience to all the candidates and all of our audience members. We will be back in a half an hour. Thank you.
Are we going to log out of this meeting or just turn our cameras off?
Oh,
I think we could do that because we're leaving the cameras in a different room and meeting in a separate one.
Yes, please don't log out of the meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilmember Gilman. So we will mute and stop our video at this time. See you next door. All right. So when Jim gets back, it gets logged on. I'll go over again, just a brief overview of ranked choice voting and how that's going to be applied this evening. I'll talk about the process of how the ballots are counted. And then Mary Hall, are you on?
She's on her way.
Okay. Know what part of it she might need to answer some questions if there's still questions about the process.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Here you go.
There she is. Great. So welcome to the special meeting of the Olympia City Council. It's still January 5th, 2021. And we have just wrapped up our interview process that we had approved earlier in the evening. So we are about to start our voting process, which is new this year, and it's been approved by council, like I said earlier, to try a ranked choice voting process. So in this process, the voters, which is the city council, ranks the candidates in the order preferred to them with a first choice, second choice, third choice. And Mary, is it okay? Do you want me to show the ballot or do you have the?
We could actually have Chris share his screen.
You better, because I've got this virtual background. Yeah,
Sure.
If you share the screen and show the ballot, that'd be most excellent. There we go. Thank you, Chris. So if the voters' top pick cannot win, their vote counts for their next choice. And so we had a tutorial earlier in the evening, so we're not going to go back unless council still has questions about that. But you're going to get to see it happen in real life democracy. So each council member, we're going to take a break here, not a break, but we're going to do our voting live on screen. And each council member will fill out their name at the top right and then their signature, which will be verified by Mary when we turn in our ballots. And so you can see the grid that we'll be working with and the list of candidates. And we just go through simply and mark our first through seventh choice. So let me see. So just a little bit of a recap. If a candidate receives a majority, more than half of the first choice votes, which would be in this case 4 votes because there's 6 of us, that candidate will win on the first count. just like in any other election. If there's no majority winner after counting first choices, then the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and any voter who picked the eliminated candidate as their number one will have their vote count for their next choice. And again, we'll be doing this live, and it'll be explained as we go through. So if approved by the City Council at the conclusion of interviews, I'm repeating that. So the ballot's been designed by Mary Hall. I will open the voting here in a minute, and each camera member on camera will mark their ballots. And then after we're all complete with our voting, just give me a sign, thumbs up that you're done. And once I get all 6 thumbs up, I will release you one at a time to walk your ballot personally down to the ballot box. And like I said, we're trying to make this process as transparent as possible. So there's no fraud that can occur between, your cubby where you're located and the voting box. And then County Auditor Hall will then open ballots and verify signatures against the signature in our voter registration database. Tabulation will be conducted and narrated by Chris Mason with Fair Vote Washington and displayed on the screen. The tally will be manual using an Excel spreadsheet. Once the tabulation has been completed, Mary Hall will announce a winner if it's on the first run, and council would need to move to accept and appoint the winner to council position 2. We have reserved the option if there's a tie in the first and second runs that we can discuss the option of bringing back those 2 people back for additional questioning. So are there any other questions from council at this point, or County Auditor Hall, do you have anything to add?
No, but I would like to at least show that the ballot box is empty before any candidates put their ballots in there. So you can prompt me when you would like me to do that.
I think we're ready to see that empty ballot box.
Okay.
It's like a Las Vegas magic show.
So they actually put the ballot in the front here, but you can't open it from here. So the ballots come out in the back. As you can see, there's nothing in there. Okay. And I believe this will be on screen while you're voting on the frames.
We're good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that. I see a question from Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah, so is the envelope necessary?
Mary?
It's really not, but
okay.
It's up to you.
And then I don't use my voter name as a city council member. So do I need to sign my voter signature?
And just sign how you would normally sign your absentee ballot. So what I did was I took the signatures from our voter registration system. But I mean, you're going to be depositing the ballot. So, I doubt you're going to intercept somebody along the way impersonating you.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I'm ready then.
Okay. So everyone else, are we ready to start our voting? Awesome. All right. So just let me know when you're completed.
Mayor Selby, I'm finished.
Thank you, Councilmember Rollins. If you just want to, yeah, give me a little shout out because my head's down.
Yep, I'm done too.
Okay.
And I'm done.
No hanging chads and Jim is done.
All right. And I'm done. So it looks like Councilmember Gilman, you're using your thing. Okay, so I'll use mine too. Right. Councilmember Parsley, you done? Excellent. Okay, so how about Councilmember Rollins and Councilmember Madrone? Do you want to come on down and put yours in? We'll go down two at a time because we're wearing masks and definitely can social distance in an empty building.
Step away from the box also.
So now if Councilmember Gilman and Councilmember Cooper want to head on down.
So if you just say your name and put it in so the camera picks up you guys.
Okay.
As active speaker.
Where's the camera at?
Oh, it's just there's one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Renata Rollins. Danny Madrone.
Hey, Councilmember Parsley, you and I can head over.
Anybody put it in so the camera picks you up.
Okay, Clark Gilman dropping his ballot in the box. All right. I want to hear what his name is, so I'm going to stay here. Are they going to call my name?
Please state your name so the camera picks you up.
Sit right here?
Yes.
Jim Cooper, Holy Love. Thank you.
Mayor Selby.
Lisa Parsley voting. Is everybody right?
Sounds like we're all done.
Okay.
For this part.
So I will go ahead and remove the ballots from the box. So, see.
I have a feeling some people are checking the Georgia results, maybe. Not as exciting as this process.
That's right. What I'm going to do is read the votes on each ballot. Chris is going to record those in our ranking table. And then what I'll do is I will put the ballot in front of or behind, for your sake, whoever received the first vote. So if you see these moving around, that is what I'm doing. So the first ballot is Renetta Rollins. First choice, Yen Hoon. Second choice, Dante Payne. Third choice, Maria Siguenza. Fourth choice, Tracy Carlos. Fifth choice, Kento Azagami. Sixth choice, Robbie Kessler. Seventh choice, Holly Davies.
So I'm going to write back these from top down. 5, 4, 7, 1, 6, 2, 3.
Okay. The next ballot is Danny Madrone's. First choice, Yen Hyun. Second choice, Dante Payne. Third choice, Maria Siguenza. Fourth choice, Kento Azagami. Fifth choice, Holly Davies. Sixth choice, Robbie Kessler. Seventh choice, Tracy Carlos.
So from the top down, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 3.
Correct. Next choice is, or the next ballot is from Jim Cooper. First choice, Dante Payne. Second choice, Yen Hyun. Third choice, Holly Davies. Fourth choice, Kento Azagami. Fifth choice, Tracy Carlos. Sixth choice, Maria Siguenza. Seventh choice, Robbie Kessler.
So from the top down, 4, 5, 3, 2, 7, 1, 6.
Next ballot is from Clark Gilman. Yen Hyun is the first choice. Dante Payne, second choice. Tracy Carlos, third choice. Holly Davies, fourth choice. Kento Azagami, fifth choice. Maria Siguenza, sixth choice. And Robbie Kessler, seventh choice.
From the top down, 5, 3, 4, 1, 7, 2, 6.
And the next ballot is from Mayor Cheryl Selby. First choice, Dante Payne. Second choice, Holly Davies. Third choice, Yen Hyun. Fourth choice, Maria Siguenza. Fifth choice, Robbie Kessler. Sixth choice, Tracy Carlos. Seventh choice, Kento Azagami.
All right, from top down, 7, 6, 2, 3, 5, 1, 4.
Correct. The next ballot is from Councilmember Lisa Parsley. First choice, Yen Hyun. Second choice, Dante Payne. Third choice, Maria Siguenza. Fourth choice, Kento Azagami. Fifth choice, Holly Davies. Sixth choice, Tracy Carlos. Seventh choice, Robbie Kessler. Okay. So, can you read that because I can't see it?
All right. So you are going to
Want me to
tell
count?
us how many ballots there are. Sorry, the candidates that didn't get any ballots.
Pardon me?
Which candidates didn't get any first choice in your stacks? You can take away those names, right?
So the candidates that did not get any first choice votes was Kento Azagami, Tracy Carlos, Holly Davies, Robbie Kessler, and Maria Sublenza. Is that confirmed from your? Is that what you have there?
Yeah, sorry, you were going too fast for me. I marked off Kento and Tracy.
Holly Davies,
Okay.
Robbie Kessler,
Okay.
and Maria Sublenza. So then the next question is, do we have a winner? We have 4 votes for Yen Hyun. 4 votes is the majority, so we do have a winner.
Who got, so Dante got 2 votes? Is that right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So we're basically done.
So does anybody have any questions? So the table you're looking at below or above is the summary of all the ballots with the tally sheet counting all of the first choice votes for the candidates. To receive a majority, 4 votes were required. And Yen Hyun did receive 4 votes. So because there's the majority, there is no reason to redistribute second choice votes.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
So I know there's going to be a lot of things we want to share with these 7 people that just so courageously stepped up today. But first, I would probably, are we ready for a motion? Wait, okay, Councilmember Parsley's hand up first, followed by Councilmember Cooper.
Well, I was just going to offer a motion, but I don't know if my councilmate Jim Cooper was also going to be offering that.
I was going to make one too, but go ahead, Councilmember.
I motion to accept the results of the ranked choice election with Yen Hyun being selected as our next councilmate on position number 2.
I second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations to Yen and welcome to the team. This is pretty exciting. And I know that we're all, like I said, we keep saying it again and again and again, that this has been the toughest field of applicants, you know, in history I can remember. So I'm going to also remind people that there's going to be 5 seats up. And so there's lots of opportunity to learn more about the community by running for a seat. So just want to leave it with that and welcome Yen.
Can we invite Yen to say a few words if she'd like?
Absolutely.
I'm so excited right now. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I don't have all of the right words because I don't think there are any right words. And I'm looking forward to going off camera so I can freak out in private. And I am so looking forward to hitting the ground running and learning all of the things I need to learn and working with my new council mates.
Any other words of, well, there's a little bit lots of words of wisdom for you because we're going to get to spend a lot of time with you this weekend.
I don't have anything else to say. I can't think of it.
No, this is like the awkward point. It's like, what do we do next?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What do I read? Give me some homework.
Oh, right. You'll be getting a packet for this weekend's retreat, and we will be meeting virtually for our viewing community. You can tune in. It will be on Zoom. You can watch us stare at each other and do icebreakers and bonding and all kinds of things. So I don't have anything more to add. Okay. Sorry. City Manager Bernie.
I just want to offer my congratulations and welcome. And Susan and I both probably at some point in time tomorrow will reach out to you and get you prepared for this weekend and next steps and getting you ready to go. So just welcome aboard and just congratulations. And we'll be in touch tomorrow.
So yeah, there's a lot of work for staff to bring on a new council member. So you're going to be pretty darn busy, and but welcome and congratulations. And again, I encourage everybody that of the 28 applications, please, there's other opportunities to be engaged in our community. We're having limited applications accepted for advisory committees this year because of COVID, but keep your eye out for that. And yep, just follow the races. All right, Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. I just wanted to take a minute, congratulations, Yen. You'll get a chance to get to know us, but to thank our staff for the kind of unheard of logistical dynamics tonight. And then really our auditor, Mary Hall, and the folks from FairVote, I can't think of, I questioned this going in, but I'm appreciative that we did it. And I'm really appreciative that we did it today, given what's going on in the rest of the country, and as we move into a transition in our White House, and really we show that Washington State has the most secure, safe, and fair elections in the world, and now we just showed them a way to take it to the next level. And so I'm really excited for that conversation in the legislature about the local option. I really want to pass on those just huge accolades to everybody involved tonight, and Councilmember Parsley for kind of jumping in and getting in the middle and getting it worked out. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Councilmember Parsley.
I want to echo Councilmember Cooper's thanks to Mary Hall and the FairVote people. Thank you very much. Susan, you worked overtime. You just proved that you actually run the city, not the city council, with how putting this whole meeting together logistically. You're amazing, Jay. You better keep her forever. I also want to thank all of the candidates, all 29, and especially the last 7 because they went through this tonight. You guys made this incredibly difficult to pick 7 people. You're all amazing. We want your voices here in Olympia, and we want you serving. And yes, the mayor's right. We have 5 races. Come out. There's advisory committees. There's ad hoc committees. There's listening sessions. Please join with us to make this even a better city than we already are. Thank you very much, all of you.
All right. I think we're done. We've been going at it for 5 hours. So we're going to let everybody, maybe it's 4. We'll let everybody get back to their evenings. And that's with no further business before the Olympia City Council, we are adjourned.